A whole new season of Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS Sprint Cup gets underway at Brands Hatch this weekend. The famous British circuit is a real old school challenge for drivers, and it's one that the fans love to come to. The teams have come from across Europe for this opening pair of Sprint Cup races, 60 minutes each in length, and it is going to be action all the way. Audi, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Honda, BMW, Porsche and Mercedes-AMG and McLaren all going toe-to-toe in this year's championship. It is very hard indeed to predict a winning brand or indeed a winning combination of drivers. And that is what makes this championship so exciting. Fanatec GT World Challenge, powered by AWS, has 4 tournaments. There's America, Europe, Asia and Australia, and all of those regional championships are now up and running. In Europe, it's a 10-event calendar split into 5 endurance events and 5 for Sprint Cup. We've been to Monza to kick off the endurance season, Brands Hatch this weekend, then Paul Ricard and Spa in endurance, Misano for sprint, Nürburgring and Hockenheim in endurance, Valencia for sprint, Barcelona the last endurance round, and the championship concludes by the seaside, Zandvoort in Holland, final sprint race in mid-October. All the cars in the championship run to the same specification. They're all GT3 homologated GT cars, and those different brands going toe-to-toe throughout the season. The championship is split though into different cups for the driver grading. And one of the stars of the championship inevitably is Valentino Rossi. The MotoGP legend is back for a second season, although this year he switches to BMW with WRT. The Pro category, as the name suggests, is any category of driver, normally factory-paid drivers, and this is where the overall race winners are most likely to come from. For the last 3 seasons, the Sprint Cup has been won by Dries van Thor and Charles Weerts. Well, this year they've got a fight on their hands. New car, the BMW at WRT. Can it be 4 in a row?
Mercedes are looking very strong, as it's a typical good track for them. Audi also look quite strong. And Lamborghini also, actually, and Ferrari also. Everybody looks very strong, and it looks like everything is quite tight. So it's going to be about details. So hopefully we can get the car in the right window and do a good job to be up in the front.
Returning to the BMW fold is Maxime Martin. He's raced for BMW in the DTM. He's indeed won the Spa 24 Hours aboard a BMW. Well, this year he's got a bit of pressure because he is half of that combination aboard number 46. In other words, he's the co-driver for Valentino Rossi.
Very competitive. I mean, it's the first time we have so many cars in sprint. The field is very high level, so at the end we have to do the best we can with what we have, and to work together. I think we improved quite a bit, and like I say, I think we have good chances for good results this year.
The new Ferrari 296 is a stunning looking car, no question about it. Emil Frey Racing has moved from Lamborghini to Ferrari for this year, and it's brought with it one of its star drivers. Albert Costa is one of the fastest GT3 drivers around, and he is surely going to be a race winner this season.
It's been 8 years with this family, I would say, not a team, not anymore. I'm joking, no, but it's going to be exciting, no? At the end I drove for them with Lexus, Jaguar, Lamborghini, and now Ferrari. Every year is more exciting because also the rivals the reality is higher and higher, and this year actually they are in advantage because many cars are already there from Monza. We are starting now. We need to rotate a little bit as a team. The car is still really new. We still understanding a little bit here, a little bit there, but we are getting there.
Raffaele Marciello has always been one of the fastest Mercedes-AMG drivers. He's also one of the best qualifiers. You put him up near the front of the grid, and then he can try and build a gap for co-driver Timo Boguslavski to try to protect in the second stint of a Sprint Cup race. Raffaele is also becoming a bit of an honorary Brit this year. He's racing in the British GT Championship on top of all of his other global commitments, and that means that he's going to be coming back to Brands Hatch later on in the season. But first up, he needs a race win this weekend.
I mean, as I said, in Monza, we know the car well. Like WRT has a new car, so for sure maybe in some track they will struggle, even though I don't believe so, because it's one of the best team in the world, so they know what to do. They tested a lot, and there is Santelog that they are really strong. They have good lineup. The Attempto one is also strong. I mean, with Mattia, with Ricardo. There are many strong cars, so I mean, we'll see.
Dean McDonald proved to be a real star last season, driving for McLaren at Garage 59, but this year he moves to the JP Motorsport team. He's going to be partnering former Grand Prix racer Christian Klein, and that brings them up to the pro category. Again, there's a bit more pressure, but McDonald is eager to impress once more.
A bit of a step up this year, but I'm looking forward to it. Got a good team behind us, good teammates, so yeah, I'm hoping for big things. I'm doing endurance as well, and the car was competitive at Monza, so these guys are going to do a great job here, so I'm sure it will be.
The Gold Cup was introduced last year as another way of keeping gold drivers on the grid and giving them a competition to fight for. You can have 2 gold drivers or a gold and a silver, but in doing that you'd round up to be in the Gold Cup. One of the front runners in the Gold Cup for the Santalot Junior team, Simon Gachet, who really has impressed over the last few seasons, and he's going to be a real gun behind the wheel of the Audi.
Yeah, 3 cars for Santalot this year. For me, it's the first time for not in Santalot, but as a factory driver, Audi factory driver. So let's start a new chapter for me in Gold Cup with Paul. So let's see.
The Silver Cup has been another really good way of bringing on GT talent. And again, they may not be the most experienced of drivers, but they're quick and they're able to learn, and they've got their own championship to fight for. As the name suggests, it's a maximum grading of 2 silver drivers. So these are the GT stars of tomorrow, and they are racing and fighting very competitively indeed. One of the front-running cars, the Mercedes, that Frank Bird shares with Jordan Love. And he's been successful in Australia in single-seaters and in Porsches. And this car, run by the Haupt Racing Squad, is certainly going to be a real pace-setter within the Silver Cup all season.
Yeah, it's good to be back in the Sprint Championship. I had a year off last year racing somewhere else. So, yeah, like I said, really good to be back and with my good friend Jordan Love. So, yeah, hopefully we can go one better this year and come out on top. So we'll try and get a good, clean weekend and then see how the rest of the year goes.
The clock is ticking on down before the cars are released to go racing for the first time this year in the Sprint Cup within Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. Right, Raffaele Marciello will start on pole position, Albert Costa alongside him. The second row, Constant Lapalainen's Ferrari, Mathieu Drudy's Audi, and then it's going to be Charles Wirtz lining up on the third row with Lucas Legeret for company. New Lamborghini factory driver Jordan Pepper goes from 7th alongside the Porsche of Christian Engelhardt. Alex Alka, silver pole, comes next. 10th on the grid, Fred Verviche. 11th, gold pole, Aurelien Panis. Benjamin Goethe is 12th on the grid ahead of Jordan Love, another of the silver graded drivers, and Sean Hudspeth, the Singaporean, is alongside him. Christian Klein will start on the 8th row alongside Leonardo Moncini. Adam Ateki next with Jean-Baptiste Simonau's BMW alongside. Simon Gachet a long way back 19th alongside Valentino Rossi, ahead of Caelan Williams, 5th in Formula 2 last year. Yuki Inamoto is alongside him. GT4 champion Emin Bastard has Finlay Hutchison alongside him. They are both ahead of Baptiste Moulin and another newcomer to the championship, Jesse Salmanatio for Mad Panda Motorsport. The returning Gregoire de Moustier is only 27th with Erwin Zanotti alongside him, and it is Nicola Risitano who will round out this 29-strong grid. So the pace car as it is peels into the pit lane. Raffaele Marciello versus Albert Costa at the front of the grid to get Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup, underway for 2023. The lights will change. The race underway now. Good start by Marciello. Costa slots in behind him as they make the run up towards paddock. There's an effort by Wirtz on the inside of the big red BMW, but he can't quite find a way through. And Marciello has done exactly what is required. He's hit the front and he charges uphill to Druids for the first time.
Yes, clean start. Everybody gets through Paddock Bend. Doesn't appear to be any contact, certainly nobody into the gravel, and everybody now streams through the tight first gear. Druids down the hill into Graham Hill Bend.
And Albert Costa is the one doing the chasing. Up into third place is Ricardo Fellas. He's got himself ahead of Constant Lapalainen as they round that left-hander, the tightening left-hander of Surtees onto the Grand Prix loop. Now that was Wirtz. He's fallen back behind Engelhardt.
Yes, he did. He fell behind. Yes, Engelhardt did very well to get ahead of Charles Wirtz. Wirtz was competitive coming up into Paddock Bend, trying to get back at Engelhardt as they come into Hawthorne. And the BM might have that little bit more straight line pace, but it's finding a part of the racetrack where you can affect that overtake.
So Christian Engelhardt, who dropped the car in the gravel at the end of qualifying yesterday, lost his best time as a result, having to make a bit of progress now as the cars go up through Dingledale, then Sheen Curve, and then it's left into that slightly banked corner of Stirling's, which has caught out many in the past. Great little battle going on there. Look, Christian Klein in number 111 McLaren fending off the Jean-Baptiste Simonal BMW. So Raffaele Marciello with a wheel on the dirt, heads out of Clark Curve at the end of lap 1. He is trying to build a lead, and he is doing so with Albert Costa chasing. And look at the gap, the top two have pulled over the third place Audi of Matteo Drudi.
Yeah, that's a comfortable advantage over the opening lap. What is it, just under a second between Costa and Marcello, but then it's 2.1 seconds between first and third place. So the lead two cars stretching their advantage, and most likely will continue to do so, because Matteo Drudi is going to be involved in a battle with Lapalainen, and in the second of the Ferraris, Engelhard in the Porsche, and Werts running out the top 6 in the BMW.
Rattling it up onto the curve, Charles Weert. He in turn is under pressure from Jordan Pepper, who is 7th, 8th Lucas Legeret, 9th Fred Verviche, and Alex Arca has dropped back into 10th place, but he's still leading silver, and the leading gold is Aurelien Panis from his class pole position. Panis running in 11th place. Right, lead gap at the end of that opening lap was 7/10 of a second, and in the first sector of this lap it has extended just a little bit more, because Marciello is faster there by another 10th. And so the field streams through Hawthorne, short straight towards Westfield, turn right, road drops down, and then you climb up through Dingle Dell. Riding on board then with Simon Gachet, turn right in the Santa Loc Audi, ride the curve along Derek Minter straight now, then set the car up for Westfield, turn in, run the curve on the outside, the road drops down, and then climb up through Dingle Dell again.
Yeah, the climb up into Sheen curve, you don't really see it until you arrive upon it. So again, you have to turn the car before you can see your apex, and of course you anticipate that you've made the right judgment. But pretty much everybody is familiar with the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch. Only 1 or 2 are visitors for the first time.
Jordan Love, who is 2nd in silver, 13th overall, is the first driver being given a driving standards flag for disrespecting track limits. So there have been warnings, but now he is the first one to be shown a driving standards flag. Race leader coming then into Clark Curve. Now let's just have a look at Raffaele Marciello as he heads up towards Paddock Hill Bend and see what speed he is doing. We were being told yesterday that cars could nudge up to 240 kilometres an hour. Well, depending on where you start to brake, it is Marciello who has been clocked at 180, give or take, through Paddock Hill Bend. Jordan Love, 177, matched by Owen Zanotti, Christian Engelhardt, Simon Gachet on 176, heading through Paddock, so brake, turn right, and go through the corner. But Marciello with that clear road ahead of him now, brave through Paddock, and 3.5 seconds to the good.
But look, Benjamin Goethe again pushing, trying to find a way around a takey.
And he's done it, hasn't he?
Just down through Dingle Dell, and that was a good exit out of Westfield that enabled him to do so.
Yeah, so Benjamin Goethe has been pushing. He got past Christian Klein earlier on. He's now got past Adam Matecki, so that puts him up in the 14th place. Right, the pit window is now open, so the race battles on to lap 18, and drivers in the pit lane are getting ready. Charles Weert's down the pit lane then, also in Consta Lapalainen, so that's 4th and 6th that come in straight away.
Yeah, 2 teams have just read the situation and said, let's stop at the earliest opportunity with one of our 2 cars. Others likewise further down the field following suit.
Right, now let's keep an eye to pit stop times here. The times are going to be line to line. There are others coming in as well, because Lucas Legeret is in, Alex Arca is in to give up his Silver Cup lead. And that means that Jordan Love's Mercedes AMG takes over silver. There is Alex Arca giving 99 over to Lorenzo Petresi, who was in the gravel yesterday. We expect also, coming down the pit lane, the Lamborghini from Baptiste Moulin. Valentino Rossi is in as well. Right, so that's going to shuffle the order. It'll all start to make more sense once everybody has served their regulation pit stop, in which you've got to change 4 tyres, by the way. You don't refuel, but you must change tyres.
41.3 seconds for WRT. That pit stop, Werts out, Dries van Voor in. So that is going to be, and there is also Valentino Rossi, and Maxime Martin is taking that car out.
Very good stop for Christopher Haase, because that was 40.6 seconds. Oh dear.
What are they doing? What are they doing? Oh. Does somebody not tell them that you don't nose the car in, and then you completely destroy the pit stop of the Audi? And everybody's just standing, waving their hands.
That has very, very badly compromised the 25 Audi. 68 is going to have to be moved out of the way. Now, it might have swung in with a problem, or it might just have been a miscommunication, but I would think the stewards will take a dim view of that. Let's have a look. The car controller waves it in. And he swings it. Oh, it was contact. That's why it's like that.
Well, that was a bad release from the Audi.
Yeah.
Whoever waved that Audi clear made a judgment, a misjudgment, and all innocence to the Honda driver and Honda team. Sorry, guys, that was just a quick reaction to what we saw, but once we've had the truth, we know what the situation really was.
I think that was 25, wasn't it? That was Owen Bastard giving way to Patrick Niederhauser. We'll double check, but yeah, that will be much discussed between the teams and the officials, that is for sure.
So we wait to see how quick this pit stop is. Can the Emil Frey team turn the Ferrari around and benefit from this, and maybe not overtake the Mercedes, which will probably come in at the last moment, but certainly ease into the advantage, and therefore they know that when the Mercedes, the 88, makes its pit stop and Timo Boguslawski takes over, that he will not have the pace of Marcello, and that might be an opportunity for the Ferrari now to do something that would bring it at least closer, if not ahead, of the 88 Mercedes.
But I think that Vanthor may well have got ahead, and I think also Ricardo Feller has gone through. So that pit stop for the Ferrari, let's just have a look at a pit stop time, 52.6 seconds. That was a slow stop for the Ferrari because everything else has been in the 40s. The Ferrari has junked places, has it not, as a legacy of that pit stop. Marcello is wide at Stirling's and up the curb, and I think you're right, John, those tyres have had enough.
Well, he's had to push very hard all the way through. Track conditions have been changing, they've been getting warmer, warmer, warmer. In he comes. So Boguslawski is ready, standing, waiting to take over, and he will be under, I suspect, enormous self-induced pressure, let alone anything that may or may not come from his team, because he knows right now he isn't as quick at Brands Hatch as Raffaele Marcello is, but he's been handed over the race-leading car.
Right, so a good pit stop is 40 seconds. Plus a tenth or so. So that's what Akonis ASP have got to try and match. So Engelhardt is in as well. So the leading pit stopper now is going to be number 40, Audi. And there, blasting away, is Timo Boguslawski. That should keep the car in the lead. Remember, there's no set time for these pit stops, line to line. They're natural pit stops, as quick as you can. But Feller is on a mission in the Audi.
Yeah, this Feller is who is technically now in second place, because Engelhardt and the 28 Gachet, which is in a different category, that's in the gold category. So there is, and Boguslawski on his outlap just has to be careful. He hasn't been in the car since Saturday evening. Track conditions are different. Ambient temperatures rising gradually up to 14.3. Track temperature up to 24.3. Track and ambient have risen quite quickly in just simply the last 15 or so minutes.
So there, blasting back into the race, is the car of now Paul Everard. This is the replay coming up of Raffaele Marcello on that in-lap, going wide at Stirling's. We saw it, we were talking about the tyres going off, but he turned into Stirling's and the car just wasn't as cooperative as it had been.
And you can see a lot of lateral movement, the tail beginning to want to come around, had to put opposite lock on to steer into the slide, which then in turn carries the car a little bit further over the exit curb than Marcello would have liked.
This is for fourth. This is Adrian Delina, who is doing a good job of hanging on there in the Porsche. Behind him is Thierry Vermeulen. Behind him is his teammate Giacomo Altway. And then at the back of this battle pack is Christopher Haase in the Audi.
Well, as we saw when Christian Engelhardt was behind the wheel of the Porsche, the BMW 32 of Charles Fates could do nothing with it in terms of lap time or straight line performance, and that's very much the same situation we're seeing now with Adrian Delina holding off for Mullen, Altway, Haase, and further down the field in 8th place Nicolas Bart. Watch this.
So that's for 8th and 9th. That is Bart versus Franck Pereira, who lines up to have a go on the outside in the Lamborghini, and he's done it right round the outside, but he's way wide over the curb.
I think he'll get away with that, Bart trying to come back, but there you've seen the first genuine racing overtake of this race, and you've seen it live as they came into Paddock Bend.
Haase is getting ever more towy, isn't he, now to get past Altway. He's bored with looking at the back of the Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to pass into Hawthorns, but maybe I would consider doing is not focus so much on Hawthorns, focus on Westfield, because if you get a run out of Hawthorns and you're quicker than the car you're pursuing, you do have the opportunity to slot down the inside, compromise the car that you're alongside and take the position away. But it's a very, very difficult task for anybody, Christopher Haase included, to find a way around.
confirmation of Pavarud's penalty, as there is Haase coming out of Clark Curve. Now let's see whether he's near enough to think about a move again now against Altway. Replay here of Dean McDonald making his move on the inside of the 163 Rolf Ineichen Lamborghini, and that's a brave effort, isn't it, going into Sterling's. Ineichen gets a little bit of a hip and shoulder and forced out wide, but McDonald comes through, and the Audi also dives through on the inside there likewise.
Car 25, 5 grid position penalty for race 2 for unsafe release.
Again, the voice of the race director, Alain Adam. 25, it's the now retired Audi, but a 5-place grid drop going into race 2 for that unsafe release. Right through the traffic, like a hot knife through butter, comes Ricardo Feller. The other element to all of this, John, is that not only is he catching the leader, he's pulling away from Vanthor, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. As you see, Vanthor just coming through the exit of Hawthorne, so he's cleared the Lamborghini. Now there's one car between second place Ricardo Feller and race leader Timo Berkoslawski. And there it is, the Honda. So I wonder what the gap will be at the end of this lap, because for this lap and just prior to going on to it, the lead car was in clear air, which will help Berkoslawski sort of re-establish that, what was it, 5 and a bit seconds. The gap as they came across the line the last time was 4.7 seconds. It ought to be no less than that, and it might be back up to maybe 5.
Well, let's see, because Bogoslawski goes through in the sectors. Ricardo Feller has been good. It's down to 4.2, so on that lap, he's 4/10 quicker.
He did. He's done a good job. And Bogoslawski will be disappointed when he gets that message from his team to say that in spite of having to make his way through traffic, Ricardo Feller has made a better fist of it than Timo you would have done.
Right, 4th, 5th, 6th over the line. Delina, Vermeulen, Altway, and in fact 7th. Christopher Haase still at the back of this train. While you're watching this, Raffaele Marciello, who of course did the opening stint in the race leading car, is watching all the timing data. This is a battle for silver. So you've got Frank Bird just ahead there of Jacopo Guidetti in the Honda. There's also Rolf Ineichen further up the road. Christopher Mees in the green Audi looking for a way past. He's pro, trying to get through the silvers.
Yeah, but Guidetti needs to be careful. He's making very aggressive, sudden moves, blocking moves. Did it coming out of Hawthorns and into Westfield, so he needs to be careful. Doing too many of those will not please our race director.
It's been fairly frantic in this little battle. Let's have a look at what went on a lap ago. Frank Bird in the Mercedes into the back of the Lamborghini. That's the car of Rolf Ineichen, which will have dropped back as a legacy of this through the corner. Let's just see what happens. He hangs onto the place, at least there.
Yeah, Rolf Ineichen must be getting a complex. He was attacked by Dean McDonald in Sterling's a few minutes ago. Now he's got Frank Love in the Mercedes likewise doing a similar thing.
So this was the continuation of the battle up towards Paddock. Frank Bird up the inside, contact, and Ineichen squeezed out wide with that contact.
Yeah, loses not just one position, loses 3, I would have said, by the time they got up into Druid. So Rolf Ineichen will come out of this race feeling battered and bruised.
So Frank Bird goes through up into 20th overall, second and a distant second in silver. Right, race leader is still here. Timo Bogoslawski, 3.2 seconds to the good, and he's just lost 6/10 in the first sector. He's had to get past the Mad Panda Mercedes.
One position for the contact in turn 1. Car 77 must give back 1 position for the contact in turn 1.
So that's Frank Bird.
Yeah, it is. But actually, that 1 position doesn't help Ineichen. It actually helps Guidotti. So that's the penalty.
Yeah, there was 3 positions lost, not just 1. So Frank Bird's got to give back 1 position, but he's going to give up more than that, because he's got to give up actually 3 positions to get them, because those other 2 cars followed Bird through.
Well, only 1 place is being required. So he will drop behind Guidetti, but Ineichen doesn't get his place back. Leader goes through. Bogoslawski over the timing line. Feller over the timing line. What are we down to? It is 2.2 seconds, 2 3/4 minutes to go.
There we go. He's got it done. Finally, Christopher Haase has found a way to get alongside Giacomo Altway in the Ferrari, and all that hard work over the entire stint. Christopher Haase has found a way through, and, well, what's it worth?
But down towards Sterling's, the gap will concertina as still Bogoslawski has that traffic ahead of him. He's up the curb, so is Feller, throwing everything at it. He, in a way, is in the better position because he can charge out of the corner and attack, whereas Boguslavski's still got that traffic ahead of him, but the Audi does not come off Clark Curve close enough. It is going to be a win in the opening round of Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup for Timur Boguslavski and Raffaele Marciello. The Mercedes AMG from Acodis ASP wins at Brands Hatch. Ricardo Feller 0.6 of a second behind, and they're in problems by the look of it. Thierry Vermeulen, who has dropped off the road and he's dropped back in the pack. Dries van Thor comes through for third. A really good, solid fourth. Good defence of that position. Adrian Delina, Christopher Hauser, as ever. Oh, Delina's got a problem. He slowed right down coming to the line, so Hauser will get fourth on the run to the line. Fifth is going to be the Ferrari in the hands of Giacomo Altway. Sixth from Pereira. Seventh across the line, Vermeulen. Eighth, Delina. Now, was that mechanical or was that fuel?
But it looked to me as if it was fuel, simply because the way the car stopped moving forward, there was no indication of any mechanical issue. But there are a lot of things in these modern race cars that could contribute to a sudden loss of drive and power.
Right, so 8th, the Porsche, not 4th. I'll take it all back. 9th, Nicholas Bart. 10th to win gold, Alberto Di Folco. 11th to win silver, Lorenzo Petresi and Alex Arca. This is Frank Bird and Christopher Mies. Mercedes AMG versus Audi, silver versus pro. Christopher Mies in the mobile runoff area, the bright green Audi looking for a way through as they dive into Clark Curve. Christopher Mies incredibly quick in his qualifying session yesterday, and he's going to do him on the line. I think he has a look on the inside. Here comes Christopher Mies, and through he goes right to the very, very end. There is drama. Christopher Mies takes 21st overall on the line. Never give up.
I mean, that's what you expect from Christopher Mies. He just is a. I mean, he's a. Well, we know he's got a what is it? Not a bulldog, but a boxer. He's a boxer. He's a boxer behind the wheel, and that was a great move into the last turn. Got the run off and just got alongside and pulled ahead of the Mercedes, and that'll give him satisfaction from a race a long, long way down. Finishes 21st position, not representative of what Christopher Mies is able to do.
So, Timur Boguslavski, Raffaele Marciello win at Brands Hatch. Let's hear from the winning crew.
Leno, congratulations. That was a fantastic drive from you. You set up everything you needed to do for Timur.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to do more. So luckily today was enough, but yeah, for sure will not be easy. As today, maybe the next time, because we know here Zandvoort is track where we are strong, and I can build that gap in some of the track I cannot. So for sure, let's hope that Timur will be a bit quicker next time. And yeah, even if I give him the car with 5-6 seconds, could be enough.
Well, congratulations, a great drive. Timur, you had the pressure on you there from Ricardo right at the end.
Yes, a bit. I was worried about traffic, but at this track it's hard to overtake, even if you are losing like 2-3 seconds. So yeah, thank you for Lelo. He make my life easier, as always, so he make a good gap for me. Yeah, to be honest, I'm struggling quite a lot since Monza. I don't know why, so we will go back stronger, I think, to the Podium car, so we will see there.
Great one, well done.
And this was our ultimate result. A win for Timur Boguslavski and Raffaele Marciello from Mattia Drudi and Ricardo Feller. Charles Weerts third with Dries van Thor ahead of Lucas Legeret and an inspired Christopher Hauser. Constant Lapalainen with Giacomo Altway fifth, and up to sixth at the very end, Jordan Pepper and Franck Pereira. Albert Costa, who ran second early on, was seventh with Thierry Vermeulen, and Christian Engelhardt and Adrian Delina dropping to eighth on the line ahead of the CompuAudi Audi of Nicholas Bart and Fred Verviche, with 10th being Alberto Di Folco and start driver Aurelian Panis winning gold. Trophies then presented to the top three combinations of drivers and, of course, the winning team. The trophy was given to the drivers, but now it's handed over to Jerome Policon. A great effort by Acodis ASP. Just the one car, but it's a winning car. And there, the trophies to the winning drivers now. So congratulations to Timur Boguslavski, Raffaele Marciello, the winners of the first Sprint Cup race of the year in Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. Temperatures are rising at Brands Hatch. The story is continuing as well after that first race. The Adrian Delina, Christian Engelhardt Porsche that was slow at the very end was out of fuel and has subsequently been excluded from the race for effectively being underweight because there wasn't enough fuel in the car for any post-race fuel checks. If there was no fuel, then it didn't have enough in it, therefore it was underweight. It's been excluded anyway, is the short version of the story. The grid for this second race, though, here at Brands Hatch, with a track temperature of nearly 33 degrees now, is based on that second qualifying session of yesterday. It means that pole position this time around is Christopher Mies, who finished the earlier race in 20th position. Gregoire de Moustier not as fast as Christopher Mies, so he's going to have to deliver in that second stint. You've got the Christophers, Mies and Haase, together at the front of the grid. It's going to be a fascinating fight between those two Audis. David Anderson and John Watson. Trackside, John, this is Brands Hatch. It's a fantastic lap.
Absolutely. 9 principal corners, lap length 2.4 miles, 3.9 kilometers. It rises and falls and it catches the unwary at every one of those 9 principal corners, and even on those gentle curves. You need to be aware.
So the lap record set by Mirko Bortolotti, 1:22.8 from back in 2017, and the fastest lap of the race earlier on was set by Raffaele Marciello as he stormed away to try to establish an advantage, 1:23.6. There are 3 classes. There's Pro, there's Gold, and there is Silver, and there is number 21 Gilles Magnus, who lines up 4th, and he is on the Gold pole position. Let's go to the grid, because on the other side of that row, 3rd on the grid, BMW number 46, Maxime Martin is going to start, and that means that standing alongside the car, Valentino Rossi with Gemma Scott.
Vali, if we can just interrupt you for a second, please. This is your second time here at Brands, this time in the BMW. How does it compare?
Yes, the track is very interesting. It's like Donington, but for the cars, yeah. And so when you drive around, you have a great feeling. The only problem is that it's difficult to overtake.
Yes.
But now for the second race, Max did a very good lap in the qualifying, so we will start in the P3, and I think that we can make a good result.
Yeah, he'll set it up nicely for you to take it home.
Yes.
Have a great race. Thanks, Vali.
Thank you. Ciao.
He's a big fan of Brands Hatch last year, and as the versatile street band serenades the teams in anticipation of the start of the race, the grid already based, as I say, on that qualifying session of yesterday. We've seen the gold pole. There a little bit further back on the grid is the silver pole. Nicola Marinangeli, who had a spin in the earlier free practice session yesterday, put the car onto class pole position. It was a really good effort in the AF Corsa Ferrari. The boss himself, Amato Ferrari, is here this weekend to oversee all of this. That's the older Ferrari, of course, the 488. Right, we better get back down to this grid. Christopher Mies, then, is the man on pole position. What can he do from there? What are his chances going into this race? Gemma Scott's about to find out.
Chris, it's an Audi front row down here, looking good for the start, and these cars are looking strong for this particular weekend, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, we've been strong in qualifying, obviously. After the BOP change overnight, it looks like it's a bit closer, I would say, especially to the BMWs from WRT. But nevertheless, starting on pole is always good, always nice. We can control the field, and that's what my plan is.
And it's very difficult here to overtake, of course.
It is. I mean, race 1 we started P27. I only gained 6 places. I was kind of a lot faster than the guys in front, but it's impossible to overtake unless they do a mistake. Few of them did me a favor and did a mistake, so I could slip through. But the rest didn't do any mistakes, and then it's impossible to overtake.
So now just keep them all behind you. Have a great race. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, those balance performance changes. The Audi unaffected, but the Honda 10 kilos lighter, BMW's 15, the new shape Evo Lamborghini 15 lighter, the McLaren's 15 lighter, Mercedes 5 kilos and Porsche 5 kilos lighter. There's a man to watch, Thierry Vermeulen, who shares with Albert Costa, and Thierry Vermeulen with limited experience but has looked pretty quick this weekend. He's had the occasional indiscretion though, hasn't he?
Yes, he sort of blotted his copybook coming out of Westfield down into Dingledale, but he did a good job this morning in a car which is ever improving, and it's great to see the brand new Ferrari 296 is very much a competitive Ferrari, and hoping that we might see something from one or two of the best placed one is the 14 on the 3rd row of the grid with Giacomo Altoe in that car. The other car back in the 6th row of the grid, Thierry Vermeulen, he will start. So, as we heard, overtaking is difficult, but there are lots of other factors that contribute to you making your way through the field.
temperatures, as I've said, have been going up and up and up. Weather has got better and better over the course of the weekend. Gilles Magnus has been a bit of a star this weekend, and he is on gold pole. Gets himself slotted into the Audi. Back to the grid, because we've touched on Thierry Vermeulen. He shares with Albert Costa in that Emil Fritter Racing Ferrari. Let's rejoin Gemma.
Albert, we saw you pushing very, very hard this morning, but you just didn't quite have the pace to get up front.
Yeah, it was difficult to follow Manlelo, but I tried my best, and then unfortunately we had a little issue in the pit stop that would cost us the podium. You know, racing happens. I'm very angry because, you know, it was difficult. We did a top job, all the crew, and unfortunately we were not lucky. But now, starting from P12, I'm gonna do my best. Also Thierry, but yeah, racing happened, and looking forward.
What does Thierry need to do now from the 6th row?
Survive in the first corner. It will be difficult also to overtake, as you've seen in the first race. It's difficult, and you need to touch, you need to be aggressive. I am, but I want to be also in the garage at the end of the race. I don't want to be in the gravel, but I will do my best.
Thank you very much. Have a good race, Albert.
So Albert Costa in the Emil Fritter Racing Ferrari. The car qualified by Thierry Vermeulen, and it will start 12th on the grid. That point that he makes about surviving the first corner is a key one.
That is, because traditionally, into turn 1, opening lap, there will always be a bit of body rub, contact, maybe a car gets spat off to the left, rarely to the right, but if it does happen, then the field scatters in every which direction, and that can have a bearing on what happens more so in the middle to the tail of the field. The front runners ordinarily can get through Paddock Hill Bend relatively unscathed. But having said that, you never know.
Christopher Hauser, you've just seen lined up second on the grid, looking confident. He shares with Lucas Legeret. Christopher Meese's co-driver, Gregoire de Mustier, returning to top-level GT racing after a spell in touring cars in the World Rallycross Championship, but his pace has not been great this weekend. So Christopher Meese carries the burden, as it were, here. He's going to, a bit like Raffaele Marciello in the first race, he's got to try and build a gap.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Meese is a very tough act to be a partner of. We saw a really good drive from him this morning, starting quite a long way back, and eventually he did on the final lap make one position as he came out of clearways across the start-finish line. So he is a pure racer, and we know he knows Audi's inside out. Starting on pole position, he does have the advantage, but alongside him is his bête noire, Christopher Hauser. The pair of them have grown up together as part of the Audi family, and they exchange wins and podiums, so there's little to pick and choose between the two Christophers.
They've raced as a combination, they've raced against each other. Each knows the other very well and what they can do. Right, grid is formed. We're nearly ready to go racing. Pole position, the green Audi, Christopher Meese. It's Christopher Hauser alongside him. 46 started by Maxime Martin. Gilles Magnus on his outside, ahead of the McLaren of Nicolai Schiergaard. Giacomo Altuve's Ferrari lining up 6th on the grid. 7th, the Audi of Riccardo Feller, and on his outside, the black and white BMW started by Nicholas Krutten. Patrick Niederhauser, a grid penalty after dramas in the pits in race 1. He's next alongside Franck Pereira, ahead of Dean McDonald. Thierry Vermeulen is alongside him. On the 7th row only, Dries Van Thor alongside Nicola Marinangeli. Lorenzo Petresi, winner of silver in race 1, lines up alongside the gold winners of race 1. Alberto Di Falco starting. Then it's Frank Bird starting alongside Cesar Gazzo, ahead of Timur Bogoslawski, the race 1 winner with masses of work to do. Ezequiel Perez Compacts, Mad Panda Mercedes alongside. Then Thomas Neubauer has Nicholas Bart alongside him, ahead of Diego Di Fabio and Marcus Pavarud's Lamborghini. Paul Everard is alongside the Porsche of Adrian Delina, ahead of Rolf Eneichen, with Jacopo Guidetti alongside him, and it is the Brazilian Fernando Croce who will round out the grid. That's 29 GT3 cars, all good to go in the sunshine here at Brands Hatch. So the grid has been cleared. The last engineers stay with the cars until there. The 1-minute board, engines will fire up, and that's the cue for Stefan Rattel to make his way off the grid. The engineers will follow suit. Doors closed, and although the teams can be in contact with the drivers over the radio, as far as any other contact is concerned, they're now left to their own devices. They will get a feel for what Brands Hatch is like on this formation lap. It's a rolling start, of course, and then the pace car, as it is, will dive for the pit lane and we'll go racing.
Another factor that's going to come into play this afternoon is that track and ambient temperatures have virtually doubled from when they were last on racetrack. So when the first race finished, then the clouds dispersed, the sun came out, and it's going to mean the balance of the car, where they had maybe a good balance this morning, might alter a bit due to higher track temperatures and the effect that's going to have on the Pirelli race time.
And as you made the point in race 1, this is a circuit with a relatively high level of tyre degradation, certainly more than, say, Spa. Right, the leading car blasts away, then the race cars are allowed off in pursuit on the green flag. They will charge away to catch up. And of course then by the end of the lap they've got to get themselves back into that rolling start 2x2 formation. So you can see the great variety of brands: Ferrari, BMW, Audi, Ferrari 488, Mercedes, AMG. Timo Boguslavski then with lots of work to do in his stint, but it's going to be a tall order. Christopher Mies, Christopher Haase is your front row. Maxime Martin, Gilles Magnus, the gold pole on row 2. Row through, Nikolai Schiergaard and Giacomo Altway ahead of Ricardo Feller and Nicholas Krutem next on the grid. Patrick Niederhauser will go from 9th, Franck Pereira from 10th ahead of Dean McDonald and Thierry Vermeulen. Dries van Thor 13th. Another man that needs to get out his elbows, Nicola Maranangeli, the silver pole winner, ahead of Lorenzo Patrese. Then Alberto Di Folco alongside, going from 16th. Frank Bird and Cesar Gazzo are on the 9th row, row 10. Timo Boguslavski, the race 1 winner, 19th on this grid. Ezequiel Perez-Companc alongside. Thomas Neubauer and Nicholas Bart are next, ahead of Diego De Fabio and Marcus Pavarud. Paul Everard Dowdy, another from the Gold Cup, 25th, ahead of Edwin Delina, with hopefully enough fuel this time. Rolf Eijken, Jacopo Guidetti and Fernando Croce round out the grid. So the cars come down towards Hawthorns and will climb through that right-hander, then that short straight towards Westfield. And we've touched on already the importance of getting through paddock safely, but so much of this race is going to hinge on the first lap. If there is an opportunity, half an opportunity even, John, you've got to take it.
Well, you'll see a gap, and by the time you think you're going to make that gap, it can suddenly close off again, and that is in particular the situation going in to Paddock Hill Bend. The cars will be pretty much side by side as they run up the hill, the incline into paddock, and then they've got to get into line, because to try and go around the outside on the opening lap with cars to your right and people literally on your rear bumper, it's a period where you need to exercise. Be aware, it's actually more about track awareness, what's going on around you, as any other factor behind the wheel.
So this is Dean McDonald's view aboard the JP Motorsport McLaren. Lots of the front-end issues of last year have been dialed out. Now they need to apparently work on the back of the car, and also the rev range of the McLaren, not fantastic. So the car's really good at the end of long straights, but it takes a while for the turbos to spin up to get the car to that velocity. So it's a bit down in speed traps, but there's optimism. Garage 59 running the Gulf liveried car, JP Motorsport, the orange one you've just seen. Both teams making strides forward. It is time to go racing then. Race 2 of the weekend in Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup. It's an all-Christopher front row. Mies versus Haase. Audis both, different teams. Santilok alongside Contiu. The lights will change to get the race underway, and Christopher Mies it is in the green Audi, a length up as they go racing now up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Maxime Martin in the BMW tries to get up the inside of Christopher Haase there as they dive through paddock, but he couldn't quite do it. Everybody safely through so far. Now the climb up towards Druid's first gear hairpin. Martin to the outside of Haase, desperately trying to find a gap, looking for track position on the inside downhill to Graham Hill Bend. This is Boguslavski's view. Cars all around him, but off the road. There goes Maranangeli. That was the silver pole winner being forced out wide, but it's Mies in the lead.
Yes, and for Boguslavski, he's made up a position not because he did anything good, he just kept out of trouble while trouble was carried on ahead of him. But Maxime Martin almost managed to get his BMW between the two bodies, and again a lot of hip and shoulder as the cars exit out of Surtees on to Pilgrim's Drop, then all the way down to the very bottom, then the climb up to Hawthorns. And again, be careful, don't try and go around the outside, it's slippery, lots of rubber, so just filter back into line and then make your opportunities later in the lap.
Dries van Thor you're on board with there, hustling on in that red and white BMW out of Vincent Voss's WRT stable as he makes the run now up through Dingledale towards Sheen Curve. He's attacking, he's defending, but the race leader Christopher Mies has Christopher Haase, and then Maxime Martin tucked up behind. Lamborghini number 60 I should say, is from Pereira, the car that he shares with Jordan Pepper as they come now down towards Clark Curve. This again on board with Dries van Thor, turning to Clark Curve. Nicholas Kruten's car just up the road ahead as the leaders come by, and the two Audis edging clear of Maxime Martin at the end of lap 1. Martin, of course, being urged on by all the Valentino Rossi fans who can see his car in that third place. But the gap between the top two, 0.3 of a second at the end of that opening lap.
Yes, everybody gets through the first lap cleanly. There was a little bit of bumping on the exit of Surtees, but nothing of any consequence. Likewise, coming out of Druids, we saw the Ferrari being pushed off onto the grass, but now things calming down. Christopher Mies has got that comfortable 0.3 of a second advantage over Christopher Haase.
And let's see what he can do on this lap. He can pull away is the answer, because he's 0.2 better through the first sector. Very wide goes Kruten. The door is ajar, at least for Van Thor, but he wasn't able to take advantage of that as they now power their way down towards Hawthorne's lap 2. Clock ticks on down. Battle on here. Look, the Audi being squeezed a little bit towards the grass on the outside line, but keeps on coming then. Side by side, diving into the corner. Lorenzo Patrese tries to go around the outside of Vermeulen, who gets the Ferrari in the gravel and into the barriers, and off he goes. He's going to be able to keep it running and rejoin. So Thierry Vermeulen does get back onto the racetrack, but he's thrown away an absolute bucket load of places.
Yeah, he was under threat coming into Hawthorne's. He decided to fight it, and he ends up being the loser. I think he maybe sideswiped those barriers, so there won't be too much damage. Look, there's 88. Timo Boguslawski knows he has a job to do to get this car, the 88 Mercedes-AMG GT3, up as far as he possibly can during his stint. He'll probably only do a 25-minute stint. The maximum stint will be for Raffaele Marcello, who will then continue the progress that's made from the 88.
Race leaders over the timing line, gap 0.8 of a second. Boguslawski goes through, and because of the dramas on that lap, he's gained a place, 18th, but still a very, very, very difficult drive from the midfield as he heads up the hill, looks to the inside line. There are the leaders. So Christopher Mies, 0.8 to the good over Haase in second place. Third, Maxime Martin, Gilles Magnus fourth. Fifth, Nikolai Kjærgaard in the McLaren going great gun. So it's Audi, BMW, Audi, McLaren. Guess what, sixth? Yep, another Audi. Ricardo Feller is there ahead of Altways, Ferrari, Niederhauser's Audi, Vanthor's BMW, because he's now ahead of Nicholas Crutzen in the next WRT BMW M4.
Ricardo Feller was one of the stars of this morning's race. He's made up a couple of positions up to sixth place. So it's Audi's. In the top six, we've got 4 Audis, only 1 BMW, 1 McLaren, and it's an Audi wall-to-wall top 6.
So Christopher Mies, the race leader. Now there, number 21 is Gilles Magnus. He's running in 4th place, but he's the leading Gold Cup driver. Second in gold is Nicholas Crutzen. Third is Cesar Gazzo in the Boots and VDS Audi as the leaders come out of Sterling's big slide by Ricardo Feller there. And you can see how dirty the racetrack is becoming as they run wide. They drag the dirt onto the circuit.
Now that the verges of the Brands Hatch circuit, which were soaking wet on Saturday and have dried out overnight, and certainly have dried out since the sun's come out, drivers are going to try and use that just to extend their runoff on the outside, particularly coming out of Sterling's. The downside is if you get onto the grass, then that's maybe that little bit too far.
Now Thierry Vermeulen, after his dramas, is still going in 28th place. And look at the Lamborghini here on the outside line. Contact turns 163 sideways. And that was Rolf Eijken, who's had a pretty torrid day. He's been a magnet for everybody.
I mean, he has been hit left, right, centre, wherever. This time he does a 360, keeps it on the racetrack, did a good job, but not a part of the racetrack that you really want to think about getting the car revolving.
So 5 minutes are gone. Christopher Mies is leading now by over a second. That is the leading silver Cup car, and it is Frank Bird in the Mercedes AMG, benefiting a little bit from Nicola Marinangeli's dramas on the first lap when he was run out wide at Druids, but the Mercedes AMG then looking strong at the moment, and 12th overall, which is a good place considering it is a Silver Cup, not a Pro class car. And another one that has run wide, we understand, over the course of that last lap. Number 69, we've seen Vermeulen, but it's come up on the timing screen now to confirm it to the team. So Vermeulen has dropped way back, but he's still circulating and now gaining ground as well. He's kind of got his head in the right place once more and starting to make progress. As the leaders come over the timing line, the margin 11/10 of a second last time, 11/10 this time. Mies has still done the fastest lap though.
Yeah, but both Audis are trading fastest sector times. 1 minute is one sector 1, then the other in sector 2 or 3. So they are right on the edge of performance, and they're pulling away by, well, 2.5, just under 2.5 seconds from first to third. Maxime Martin in the first of the BMW M4 GT3s, and then Gilles Magnus, who's done an outstanding job as far as I'm concerned, to be in 4th position.
Top speed exiting Sterling's at the moment to Christopher Mies, the race leader, at 152 kilometres an hour. You're riding with Timo Boguslawski, still in 18th place. There is Mies then. The car almost camouflage between the grass verges, given its livery as it comes now up towards Westfield. Turn right, and then the road drops away downhill. Christopher Haase in second spot, losing a little bit of ground on this lap.
What Christopher Mies needs to do, and he knows this, that his co-driver, Gregoire de Moussier, is probably not as strong as the co-driver Christopher Haase has, Lucas Leggera.
Yeah.
So he needs, if the two cars remain first and second, he needs to have as large a gap as he possibly can to take the pressure off de Moussier and put that pressure back onto Lucas Leggera.
So Christopher Mies comes across the line. We're riding then now with Dries Van Thor, that is Patrick Niederhauser's Audi up the road. The lead gap is 1.3 seconds. Van Thor isn't close enough to think about a move heading into Paddock Hill Bend, at least not on this lap. Turns through the right hand of the road, plunges downhill, and this really steep climb up the other side.
Yeah, so this is the part of the circuit where I think Dries Van Thor and Charles French felt that the BMW is not as strong as it is from other parts. Once they leave Surtees and go on to the Grand Prix loop, then the car, really, the strength of the car comes to the fore. We saw that this morning, where the BMW would close up to the car that he was pursuing, but once onto the pit straight and then through Paddock and up to Druid, the gap then seesawed between half a second and 0.3 of a second.
We also saw after that first race earlier on in the day just how hard Dries Van Thor had worked. It was a good pit stop as much as hard work behind the wheel that gave them the result, but he did look as though he'd had a pretty difficult stint in that car, which is not as compliant as other race cars that he might have driven, and there's one such, the Audi that leads the way. Christopher Mies then, using all of the road, as John rightly says, he's trying to build that gap for Gregor and Mustier to preserve in the second stint, but actually in the first sector fractionally quicker as Haase, but then the gap stretches out again in the second sector. The drone, you look over at Clearways and then into Clark Curve. Maxime Martin, though, is still in touch in third place.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of starting at the front of the grid. You can get away with the front row or the second row of the grid. He was starting in third position, second row of the grid, so he's capitalised on that. In fact, challenged Christopher Haase coming into Paddock Hill Bend on the opening lap, but had to settle back into third place. But he's not really being challenged by Mingus. He's just under a second behind, but that's a comfortable gap for Maxime Martin in third place.
Number 14 there, the Ferrari of Giacomo Altuve, under attack from Patrick Niederhauser. That blue Audi having had a grid drop, given its part in the accident in the first race when it was leaving the pits and harpooned the Honda that was coming in. So
yeah, it was one of those sort of comedy moments that maybe will go onto a Christmas tape for that team, just to look back on and think, well, who didn't get that one right?
But the serious issue is it could have been quite nasty, with people, of course, standing in the pit lane, controlling cars coming in and out. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Right, Niederhauser to the outside line, no gap.
But he's looking to make the undercut, because the defence the Ferrari had to make meant that its entry into Hawthorns wasn't optimised, but consolidate. So Patrick Niederhauser thought maybe he could work the Oracle and get up the inside coming into Westfield. It didn't work this time, but he'll continue to try.
So down to Sterling's they come. And as Christopher Mies heads then now towards the timing line, do you know what? They're not going to be far off Lapri here, because Mies has just gone over the line. Fernando Croce, who is in last place, has yet to get to the end of the first sector. He is about 10 seconds a lap slower than Christopher Mies at the moment, so it ain't going to be long before the leader catches a slower car.
Well, if there's that differential in pace, then there shouldn't be too much of a problem, but it's really where you're going to catch that slow car, because if you catch it in the wrong part of the racetrack, that can destroy your momentum, and it's the key here at Brands Hatch is maintaining that pace, that momentum. Have you lose it, then it's difficult to find it again, and the car that's following you, in this case Christopher Haase, he'll look at that and think, well, how can I jump all over Christopher Mies and try and take away the lead of this race?
Right, that's then Dries Van Thor chasing Niederhauser, who in turn is getting onto the back of Altuve. So those three cars all bunching up then, and that's the fight for 7th, 8th and 9th places. The lead gap has stretched out quite a lot last time around, up now to 1.9 seconds, so Mies on a mission.
Just looking at the respective times of the two BMWs, Martin did a 1:25.1, that's his best lap. Dries Van Thor's best lap is a 1:25.5, so the best was just under 0.4 of a second difference, and that's the difference in being in relatively clear air, which Martin is, and Dries Van Thor being in the middle of a battle of cars directly ahead of him, but more importantly cars running behind as he comes through and exits out of Sheen, and you can see there's a little battle going on. Mad Panda in the midst of all that.
That's Perez Companc ahead of Patrese, ahead of Bogoslawski, so Timur Bogoslawski might be able to gain ground here if anything happens between the two ahead, and like that, very nearly the door is open, but he's not, well, yes, maybe he can get his nose up the inside. No, Audi cuts across.
I mean, it was not a clever idea for Lorenzo Patrese. He's only 17 years old, for goodness sake. And I don't think he even shaves yet. Nevertheless, that was a courageous move, and that's what you have when you're young. You do these things. And Bogoslawski saw that, thought, can I make a move, can I get myself positioned? But he couldn't get on the throttle early enough or hard enough to give him that little bit of more momentum. So Patrese survives in his current position, which is 17th, and Timur Bogoslawski An opportunity possibly missed by Boguslawski to get ahead of that very competitive Riccardo Lorenzo Patrese in 17th position.
But he's still got another chance because Patrese is still stuck, is he not, behind Ezequiel Perez compact in that Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, the Argentine driver keeping the Italian at bay, and then Boguslawski riding with him. Again, he's closing up, and Patrese missing the apex a little, going through Hawthorne, then runs out wide. This is the run towards Westfield. He's clawed back the lost time, now he's looking for a gap. The leader, incidentally, is just about to put a lap on Fernando Croce as he comes up towards the timing line. Boguslawski heads into Stirling's now.
So here we go into Stirling's. Get the nose of your Mercedes in there, but Timo Boguslawski. So Patrese does a good job, Boguslawski does a good job, so there's no loss, no gain between these cars, battling 17th and 18th position. This time Patrese not in a position to try and make a move on Perez compact. He did that one lap ago, it didn't work. So these three cars, 16, 17, 18, basically doing what's happening all the way through the field. They're seesawing in terms of the gaps between them ahead and behind.
So Mies to Haase, 1.9 seconds. More battles further through the order, including Verlook, 71, charging back, Nicola Maranangeli in silver.
On that last lap, Christopher Haase has clawed back about 0.3 of a second. The lead gap had gone up to 2.2, it's down to 1.9. Now we're talking about 0.3 of a second as if it was like the world was going to change. But to Christopher Haase, that's a gain.
Absolutely, and it also, of course, helps going into that second stint. There's less ground for Lucas Leggeret to make up. Lots of flashing of the lights from Adrian Delina as he closes again onto the tail of Nicola Maranangeli. Maranangeli goes through with Jacopo Guidetti up the road, and this battle is Paul Everard versus Alberto Di Folco, which is for place in the Gold Cup, which is being dominated by Gilles Magnus, who's way out front, but of course he is quicker than Finlay Hutchison, his co-driver, so things might well change in the second stint in gold as well.
Adrian Delina needs to keep his eyes skinned on the mirror because we got Thierry Vermeulen recovering from that big off he had in Hawthorns, now back onto the tail of a Porsche, a car in the hands of Vermeulen that is arguably quicker than the Porsche is in the hands of Adrian Delina. So his lights are going, and they've got a 5-6 car train, 7, almost 8 car train of cars now beginning to compress and compact as they come through to complete lap 11.
And Paul Everard just up the road ahead. He's ahead of De Folco trying to maintain that place. He does so. There you've got Adrian Delina with Thierry Vermeulen right up behind him, 25th and 26th. You'd expect those cars to be much, much higher, but such is the level of competition in Sprint Cup this year. They find themselves a long way down, partly because of poor qualifying, but in the case of Vermeulen, because of that off earlier on in the race. The lead gap has shot up again, 2.5 seconds now between Mies and Haase. So the Red Bull sponsored or liveried Ferrari of the Verstappen.com racing outfit, that of Thierry Vermeulen, comes through Graham Hill Bend. Remember, he is in 26th at the moment, but part of the reason the car is so far down the order was that off that he had at Hawthorns a little earlier on in the race. This was it. He was busy battling with the Audi, a bit of a run between them, that unsettled the Ferrari, and off it went.
Yeah, and it went through the gravel virtually sideways and had a light, I would say, caress with the barriers on the outside, but little damage, if anything, just be cosmetic, a bit of a quick rub down with a T-cut and a good bit of mutton cloth, and it'll look as good as new.
It was Lorenzo Patrese that he was fighting with, and he came off worse. Right, this is the view from Vermeulen's Ferrari 296, the new Ferrari, great looking car, and it looks fantastic in that colour scheme as well as he chases Adrian Delina. Some of the work to be done to gain places will be done on the pit stop, but I'm afraid it's going to be a rather disappointed Albert Costa. He was talking about wanting to be on the podium. It ain't going to happen from here, is it?
Be very difficult. I mean, you never know. In motorsport, things can change unexpectedly, but the likelihood is, as you point out, very unlikely. You can see Vermeulen took about 1/10 of a second out of the car that he is pursuing, but he needs to take more than 1/10 of a second in one sector to make progress.
The climb up towards Druids, and at the corner, Jacopo Guidetti in the Honda NSX keeping Nicola Maranangeli's Ferrari at bay. That's Fernando Croce then, who has gone a lap down, and he's going to lose track position again in a moment to the Everard Di Folco train.
I have to think that there's a problem with the Lamborghini because you don't go that slow. I mean, even I could drive at that pace at my sort of mature years, so I suspect there's an issue, a mechanical issue, causing that car to be way off the pace.
Well, he's going to see this train come steaming past very, very shortly. as the field goes down now through Hawthorne. So Christopher Mies leading the way. 2.4 seconds is that margin. Now remember, there is a pit window between 25 and 35 minutes. And with a few minutes yet to go before we get to that mark, but the teams will be already factoring in what to do with their drivers. And in the majority of cases, if you've got your quicker driver in first, whoops, Audi off there in the gravel, you'll keep your fast driver in for as long as possible. But that, number 9, is Alberto Di Folco off the road, the Gold Cup winner in race 1, and that looked beached to me, and I rather fear we might be getting an interruption to the race.
Well, if there is going to be an interruption, will then people take advantage of that to dive into the pits? We're still, what, 7 minutes away from the pit lane window being opened. But whether we wait to see race director chooses to keep it as a localized yellow, but getting the car removed from there will fundamentally require a snatch vehicle to pull it out of the gravel trap, and that more than likely will mean maybe a full course yellow and safety cars.
Let's see what he decides to do then. Alain Adon will be looking at this. He'll consult the local officials to say how long do you think that's going to take to get a snatch vehicle to it, but I rather fear we are going to have to go for an interruption. The incident between Lorenzo Patrese and also Thierry Vermeulen will be investigated post-race. We're going to go full course yellow to slow the pack down. We are within 20 seconds of that full course yellow being called for. We're now within 10 seconds of the full course yellow coming, and it's been called for now, so Christopher Mies slows right down. I suspect we will go safety car. The full course yellow means everybody slows, you can get everything under control, then you can start to sort things out, send your snatch vehicle out and make sure that marshals are safe to go trackside. But then, because it's going to take a little while for the restart, you'll need to get them behind the safety car to allow the speed to increase. But the full course yellow slows everybody down, and then you've got time to breathe, time to sort out the problem. So this is what happened, John.
Well, trying to go the long way around, up in, and of course the Audi, just one comes across the front of the other. I mean, not a great place to try and go around the outside of a competitive car, simply a car the same as you're driving, and then sideways, the worst possible way to go into a gravel trap, because all you do is just bury the left-hand side of the car, in this instance, into the gravel, and you're sitting there motionless, waiting for a snatch vehicle to come and recover you and get you back off out of the gravel and let this race get back underway. But we're now, what, 5 minutes away, or just over 5 minutes away from the pit lane window opening.
Now, it could be that the pit window is delayed, but all that will serve to do is bring everybody in as one a bit later. So all you do is kick the problem down the road. So we'll wait and see whether the pit lane opening remains on time. As I say, everybody potentially tries to take advantage of this interruption, if that is the case. But if you postpone it, then they're going to just come in as soon as they possibly can. And part of the issue here is the pit lane crowding. But all you do really by delaying it is that you move the problem further into the race, as I say. So there you go. That's the car in question. And the number 9 Audi being retrieved, having spun into the gravel over at Sheen Curve. And you've seen the safety car on track. We're not yet under safety car conditions, so the gaps between the cars remain. Now we go safety car, so that means that Christopher Haase, for example, can speed up a little bit to catch Christopher Mies. We'll get everybody in a long line, so that once the Audi is out of the gravel, we're ready for the resumption of the race.
So for drivers in the pits, rubbing their hands with glee at the thought of the safety car getting the entire field to bunch back up before they do dive into the pits for their driver change.
But one that won't be rubbing his hands with glee is Christopher Mies, because his 6-second cushion, as it had become, is going to be nothing.
Obviously, he was the exception. I was about to get there, actually. I had so much I wanted to say at one time, and I couldn't decide what way to put it all together.
Well, you win some, you lose some, and it means that the pressure is going to be on Gregoire de Bustier. But this, I tell you what, this brings Valentino Rossi into the game, doesn't it?
It might bring Valentino Rossi in. Look, they're looking at a podium.
Yeah.
Because Maxime Martin did a great job in qualifying, get that car on the second row of the grid. He's run in third place throughout. And when he hands the car over to Valentino Rossi, assuming that WRT have another one of their Sterling pit stop, they should get Rossi back out more or less where that car has come in. And therefore, we know that Valentino, when he's running in a strong position near the front, is capable of bringing that car back and getting a podium position. It's harder work, as it is for pretty much for everybody here this weekend, when you're in the middle or the back end of the field to make any significant progress. So I would say WRT are looking to the 46 BMW to be their car that's going to give them the ultimate podium.
It was 14th in this morning's race. So the car's now weaved to keep the tyre temperatures and pressures up along Cooper Straight. 99, Lorenzo Petresi. His incident with Vermeulen will be looked at post-race. There is Timo Boguslavski. He's still in 18th place. Now, in a way, this helps Raffaele Marciello because it bunches up the field, but it still makes life tough in as much as the car's not gaining any places. But there are less... I'll try this again. The gaps aren't as big. There's still the same number of cars, but the gaps aren't there on this bunching behind the safety car. And the question remains as to whether we can go green before the pit window opens, and it's 2.5 minutes away.
So the Audi is sitting there waiting for the safety car train to come through before it can then rejoin. And it's lost, what, probably 2 laps, if not maybe 3. Certainly it looks like 2 laps. So he's going to have to sit there. It's painful to wait, but that's the price he pays for making a move around the outside, coming up through Dingledale into Sheen Curve. It's not an ideal way to try and find a way around a corner.
Right, there's going to be at least one more lap behind the safety car then. And this will be the end of lap number 15 as they come up towards the line. So the Audi safety car goes through, being hustled along by Christopher Mies, who's almost pushing him, in fact, as they went up towards paddock that time around. You know the form, if the lights are out on top of the safety car, that's the indication it will be in at the end of the lap that we're on. There'll also be that information put on the timing screen for the teams to relay to the drivers. And if Alberto Di Folco is circulating once more, then the road should be clear. You need the the snatch vehicle to go back to its post. You need, and you can see about the pit window being delayed by a couple of minutes just to let them go racing again. The marshals need to be back on post, but the safety car will be in this lap and the pit window delayed by 2 minutes. That's what you've seen.
What will be interesting to see is, will Christopher Mies stay out for the maximum pit window time, as we saw Marciello do this morning? I think he certainly will do that. What I'm curious about is, will the second place Audi of Christopher Haase do something different, go off message, come in, get Lucas Legejar into the car, and hope that maybe by doing so they gain, because Christopher Mies is obviously the one that's going to maximise his advantage. They'll have 10 minutes or so to do it before he is compelled to come in and hand his car over to Gregoire de Moussier.
I would certainly go with the theory that Mies will push for as long as he possibly can to try to rebuild that lead. Christopher Haase, Lucas Legerai, they're evenly matched. Christopher probably still the quicker of the two, but they're in the box seat.
The reason I go for the sort of the theory that I've got is I would rather put my second driver, in this case Ligier, into the car and get him up to speed, rather than wait until the final moment, which is what Christopher Mies is going to do, and throw the car to de Moussier, who's going to be under enormous pressure to try and deliver at the instant he gets into the car. It's what a racing driver thinks about, not what a team principal or a manager thinks about, or all the strategists in the Audi team pit. They'll work out something completely different, but keep it simple, mate, keep it simple.
Well, it's going to be 2 racing laps, isn't it, before the window opens in real terms for the leaders, and we go racing again at Brands Hatch. Green flags fly, racing again. Mies, Haase, Martin, the top 3. 4th is Gilles Magnus, the Gold Cup leader, and the leading silver is still Frank Byrne in the blue Mercedes AMG that goes through Paddock Hill Bend in 12th place. You're riding on board with Dries van Thor. You're 9th, heading up towards Druid. Patrick Niederhauser's Audi ahead, going one side and then the other to try to find a way past Giacomo Altuve's Ferrari.
There's nothing Dries van Thor can do. He can just sit there, watch the Audi ahead, watch the Ferrari ahead of that, and the rest of the field further up the road. He's just stuck. The pace of these cars, the aerodynamic effect, just simply the balance of performance has brought everything so close together. I mean, Brands is a great circuit, but it's difficult as a racetrack. The size of the cars, the size of the racetrack, and just the overall performance of GT3 cars these days is very impressive.
Into Hawthorns. And there, look, the battle is on between Dean McDonald and the Thomas Neubauer BMW. So Dean McDonald...
But Neubauer comes back because of the line that the McLaren took. Coming into Hawthorns now, Hawthorn look trundling back again, so it's quid pro quo, but Neubauer backs out of it very wisely because you've got to find himself in a similar situation coming into Stirling's we've just seen a few moments ago.
What do people say? Impossible to overtake round here, not if you're really brave. So there's another effort. Boguslavski there nibbling at the back of Petresi for 17th place. Look, coming out of Stirling's on board now with Boguslavski, heading down towards Clearways, goes to the outside, thinks about the inside, doors open, go, 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 Timur. Gap has opened up for him. He's got the nose of the Mercedes alongside the Audi. He's being followed along by the Lamborghini there as well. You can see a Marcus Pavaren, but Timur Boguslavski goes through. Pavaren thought about making it 3 abreast, going up towards paddock. That was never going to work, but Timur Boguslavski goes through, goes wide, hooks a wheel almost into the gravel, but he's done it, he's gained ground.
And Lorenzo Patrese is not going to give up the position. He's being forced to, because he's been forced wide up and through it. So the Lamborghini gets through. The first of the 2 Hondas tries to follow through as well. So, you know, Patrese he hung on and hung on and hung on. Eventually he had to concede.
And in the background, look, Vermeulen is having to go with Delina. It was the Ferrari he had last time. Whoops, contact there. That was Patrese being given a little bit of a whack by Jacopo Guidetti going on to the Grand Prix section. The pit lane is now open. The window is open. So Patrese, look, he's got probably one foul in the tyre.
I think. I thought I saw blue smoke coming from the rear of Patrese's car.
I think it's the bodywork pushing against the tyre. I don't think it's gone down, but you're right, the bodywork has been pushed against the rubber. He's still got the pace for the moment, but that might be an incentive to get him in before it does go bang.
Well, you can see the car, there's a bit of bodywork trailing behind, and there was a whiff of, the Ferrari goes past as well. So it's all suddenly cracking off, coming up into one of the most difficult parts of the racetrack to find a way through. Vermeulen gets through this time safely. Look, Adrian Delina trying to follow through likewise in the Porsche.
Paul Everard in that grey Audi is the one that's losing places as Mies stays out, but into the pit lane come others. So as they break the beam, Ricardo Feller has come in, so has Altway, so has Van Thor, so has Franck Pereira.
And my bet stays out. Christopher Haase has opted to stay out.
Boguslavski is in, which makes sense to get much yellow into the car. That's Van Thor to Weert, so that gets Dries out of the traffic. Thomas Neubauer in behind him to give way to Jean-Baptiste Simonard. And look, that's Raffaele Marciello in the white overalls climbing into the third of those cars, replacing Timur Boguslavski.
And there's so little room in the pit lane. You've got a 4-metre box. You can get a 6-metre box.
6-metre box
You're
for a
allowed to park
5-metre
the car in.
yeah.
Boguslavski looks around, tries to find a way to get to safety because his car is filling out left, right and centre. Oh, Marciello, wow, that was not an unsafe release, but he comes out behind. That's not the 32, that's the sister car. That's the car that Neubauer just brought in.
That's right, Simonard's car. He's ahead in turn of Albert Costa of Altway. So I reckon that 14 is the one that's dropped back on that pit stop again. Emil Frey lost ground in the pits in the earlier race, and Konsta Lapalainen takes over number 14, but it's lost ground in the pits. All of this will unravel, of course, as everybody serves the mandatory stop, but it does rather look as though the number 14 Ferrari has lost out. Fernando Croce, who we were talking about possibly with a problem for being slow on track, he's then being investigated for being too fast under full course yellow, rather ironically.
So what can Marciello do? I mean, he's in the car, he'll be pumped like you can't believe. And what's the problem with the 71 Ferrari? Is it not firing up? Or is it got a penalty it's got to serve before they can get to work on it? No, it looks like it's going to be pushed into the garage and hasn't fired up after their change. McLaren in likewise.
Yeah, that's Dean McDonald to give way to Christian Klein. But yeah, that was the car that qualified on pole in silver, the Ferrari of Nicola Marinangeli, that is not for firing up, is it? So problems for that car as the leaders swoop onto the Grand Prix section once more. That lead gap has not really grown, has it? Particularly, it's 7/10 of a second between Mies and Haase. So there's not much to choose between them. Maxime Martin is still there in third place.
Well, certainly the safety car has not helped Christopher Mies, that is clear, because the gap is 3/4 of a second. And then it's a further 3/4 of a second back to Maxime Martin. So which of these three teams, car brands, will ultimately become the winner? Well, Maxime Martin is going to hand over to our hero, Valentino Rossi, and one might say that is Rossi the best of the three co-drivers to the leading three cars?
I would say it's Leggeret, but we will see in 29 minutes time, because that's roughly what we've got before the checkered flag. So in gold, Gilles Magnus leads, and he's quicker than Finlay Hutchison, so we'll keep an eye to that battle. As in now comes Haase, and in also comes Maxime Martin. So Valentino Rossi is ready. So too is Lucas Leggeret. So two very important pit stops here. In the background as well, Nikolai Kiergaard is in to give way to Benjamin Goethe. And Christopher Mies now leads Gilles Magnus, both staying out for as long as they possibly can. BMW arrives, Rossi opens the door, and he's good to leap on board.
Yes, and this is the opportunity for WRT to work one of their miracle pit stops to leap from the Audi that came in alongside and try and do something that would elevate them.
So out of Sterling's comes then the charging Matteo Drudi with Charles Weerts behind him. Remember, these are second drivers, these cars in their second stint in the race. Away now goes Rossi, and they've jumped ahead of the Audi. That was a very poor pit stop by the Audi.
Yeah, and that was what WRT were going to be banking on, that they could get that car in, turn it around and get back out.
But Mathieu Drudi goes ahead of the BMW, so Mathieu Drudi is the big winner on the pit stops.
Certainly.
The big loser is the Haas Leggere Audi. That's lost about 3 places, and although Valentino Rossi should have been better off, he's actually lost out to Drudi, who's been on a mission.
He was momentarily better off until Matteo Drudi nailed him, just going up into Druz.
But why was that such a bad pit stop for number 11? Lucas Legere's stop was 49 seconds. Others are doing 41s, 42s. So big chunk of time lost in the pit lane. The time for number 46 BMW was 42.6 seconds. Mathieu Drudi's was 44.5. So Drudi has been really quick since he got in the car. Best lap of the race, by the way, number 12 Audi, Fred Verviche.
So interesting, the pit stop times. Matteo Drudi has done an excellent job on his opening laps to get that car up to where he has got a position. As we wait to see what's going to happen when the entire field make their... there's another 4 minutes, because this was delayed by 2 minutes. So it'll be another 4 minutes before the pit lane window closes. And the 77 Mercedes, as we look, and Christopher Mies still yet to stop. And he will do that at the last convenient moment.
Right there, joining in is Jordan Love, who's taken over from Frank Bird in the car that was leading in silver. So for the moment, it loses its class advantage. Raffaele Marciello is doing absolute bests in sectors. So is Fred Verviche, who's done the fastest lap of the race. Jean-Baptiste Simonal there goes ahead of Jordan Love, the Mark Blundell managed driver, the Australian Jordan Love, as he comes out of the pit lane. So Mies, Magnus, Niederhauser, Kompank, Pavarud and De Fabio yet to pit. The best of those that have made a stop is Mathieu Drudi, 7th at the moment. Now his lap last time around was a 24.5, and Christopher Mies here was a 25. So in real terms, Mathieu Drudi, number 40 Audi, is catching the race leader. It is game on now, and number 40, started by Riccardo Feller, taken over by Mathieu Drudi, is looking very strong indeed.
Christopher Mies just hanging it out until he has to come in this well, no, he maybe get one more lap after the lap he's presently on. But the rest of the race is going to be focused very much on Matteo Drudi, currently in 7th place, but those ahead of him, with the exception of Christopher Mies, have yet to make their pit stops.
Right, now this is Charles Wirtz, who is charging after Valentino Rossi. So this, in real terms, is going to be the battle for 3rd place. So Mies to give way to Gregoire de Moustier, but given Gregoire's pace in the early race and in qualifying, I rather fear that he might get overhauled, but we'll see to what extent within that second stint. So Christopher Mies has gone through. His last lap was a 1:25.1. Mathieu Drudi goes through a 1:24.5, 6/10 pullback on that lap alone. So number 40 Audi is getting stronger and stronger. Mathieu Drudi here can smell a win.
It'll be interesting to see, because when Mies hands over to de Moustier, the pace is not going to be anywhere near that of Christopher Mies, so that'll see that car fall back. And right now, the Feller Drudi Audi is a very strong combination of drivers.
Yeah.
Probably the strongest right now in the top 4 to 6 cars.
So you've got Drudi, then Rossi, then Wirtz, then Goethe, and then Legere. Fastest lap of the race, Albert Costa now, who is absolutely charging. Another lap done for Christopher Mies. This is going to be his last one, I would have thought. Otherwise, he'd be pitting outside the window. So Christopher Mies there did a 1:24.7. So that's better. The pace has been tweaked a little bit. Gilles Magnus is in. Patrick Niederhauser is in. So down now towards Graham Hill Bend comes Christopher Mies. So he is the only one yet to make a pit stop.
Yeah, so the remaining of the top 5 are all in now as well. So this will be the last lap for the lead car, the 27 Audi. And then it'll be, well, we have to wait and see just how they can turn this car around. Will that give the lead of the race to Matteo Drudi, who currently is running very quickly indeed.
So Mies will be in. It'll be tight, but he'll be in just before the window closes, so he's running right to the very extreme. I told you Albert Costa had done the fastest lap of the race. He's trying to haul number 69 Ferrari back into the mix as you look at Christopher Mies then, who is now 44 seconds ahead of Mathieu Drudi. Gilles Magnus, who was running in second place, has made his pit stop to give way to Finlay Hutchison, so we'll need to monitor that car's progress. I'll give the order after the pit stops because here's the most significant of the lot right now. In comes Christopher Mees to give way to Gregoire de Moustier. This is the leading car down the pit lane. This has got to be a good stop.
Let's wait and see. Christopher Mees knows what he's got to do. Gregoire de Moustier will be on message. But really it will be in the hands of the team that they can turn that car around, as there is the potential race leader. And that is Matteo Drudi. And just looking to see Magnus, Rossi and Wertz running at the top 5.
So Valentino Rossi's last lap was a 25.0, Wirtz a 24.9, Goethe a 24.5, and Legere a 24.5. And there's lots of potential there for a battle. As away now goes Gregoire de Moustier. Here comes Mathieu Drudi. So it's going to be on the road, the Audi of Drudi, to take over the lead as he comes over the timing line. Valentino Rossi will go second. Charles Wirtz will go third. Benjamin Goethe will go fourth round the outside. So Gregoire de Moustier fifth. And Lucas Legere is about to relieve him of that on the run up the hill. They left Mees out for too long because the cars on fresher tyres were lapping quicker.
That was always going to be the gamble that the team took. You stay out, give your best driver the best opportunity. He's leading the race, but those around you have come in, fresh tyres, fresh driver, ultimately have proven that that was the right way to go.
So the cars now turn their way up through Surtees. Raffaele Marciello, in the meantime, is up into 8th place. Now that, again, partly thanks to the pit stops and strategy, has really played in his favour. So that car now is doing a great job as the cars now sprint down towards Hawthorns, swing their way through the corner.
Yeah, but what's he going to do with the BMW? Callan Williams, he ain't any slouch. And again, race. Oh, come on, get through the inside on the grass. Marcello tries, and the BMW's been annexed. Where has it gone to? Was trying to slip through in the 27 Audi. So wow, what a job by Marcello. He made a lot out of very little at that opportunity.
So de Moustier loses another couple of places. This race has completely been turned upside down now, hasn't it, for the Santalot Junior team. So Raffaele Marciello is striding forward and making progress.
I'll tell you what, Marcello should go up and shake hands with de Moustier after the race, because probably wouldn't have been any realistic way he would have gotten past Callan Williams in the BMW, but it was a gift. Okay, he had to do a bit of grass cutting up the inside at the exit of Westfield to get it done, but he got it done.
We've also had a spin for number 31 of Jean-Baptiste Simonal, we understand. Right, race order. Mathieu Drudi leads from Valentino Rossi in second place. The gap is 2.5 seconds between them. Third now is Charles Wirtz. Fourth, Benjamin Goethe. Fifth, Lucas Legere. And sixth, Raffaele Marciello. Seventh there is Callan Williams. Down to 8th is de Moustier. Down to 9th is Finlay Hutchison. And 10th is Erwin Bastar, having replaced Patrick Niederhauser. Now, all of this means that here, Callan Williams has taken over the lead of the Gold Cup. There is the BMW then, the new Gold Cup leader, having moved ahead of Finlay Hutchison. And that was Marciello with 2 wheels on the grass, dives up the inside of de Moustier, who just runs out of road.
Well, he had nowhere to go. There was a Mercedes on the inside, and that's the high ground when you come into a corner. So he had little option, but he got wide. He got onto the dust on the outside of the corner, which dragged him further off, and managed just to get through whatever bit of gravel he ran through. And there is, well, there, I've got to say, there is our race leader, Matteo Drudi, with a 2.5 second advantage over Valentino Rossi. And I personally don't see Rossi challenging Matteo Drudi. What we've got 20 minutes of this race remaining.
But the question is whether he can preserve that second place. This car started 7th on the grid. Now, this will make history at Brands Hatch because we've never had a Sprint Cup winner from lower than 3rd in a race here. The last time anybody won a sprint race from 7th on the grid was WRT way back in 2017. But Valentino Rossi, can he hang on to that second place? I think Drudi can build the lead, but it's a BMW battle for second.
Well, Charles Wertz will think, I can get Valentino Rossi every and any day of the week. Now, Valentino, stand up in the seat of your car and prove you've got the ability to maintain that second place.
And they're also being hustled along by the really impressive Benjamin Goethe in 4th. He has come on hugely since his debut at Monza in the wet all those seasons ago. And there he is, the McLaren, up into 4th place, charging along. It was 5th on the grid, admittedly, but it dropped back earlier on in the race. He's brought it into 4th. Lucas Legere is 5th, but Legere is another very quick driver within that leading group.
But you say that, one of our heroes, Raffaele Marciello, has taken already over half a second out of the gap between 5th and 6th. Legere 5th, Marciello 6th. So Marciello is on a charge.
no question about it. He could do with another safety car, couldn't he, to bunch them all up, just give him a little bit of a leg up. This is Rossi, who is on target for his best ever finish for second place. If he can hang on to it, and it will be a great result if he can do it. Right, look at the battle pack here behind Demustier. Big dive up the inside there. Look, by Konsta-Lapalainen, who goes through, gains the place.
Great and courageous move, saw the opportunity, caught napping, and that's what happens sometimes if you're not aware of this sort of spatial awareness when you've got traffic around you.
But he's just done that to Jordan Pepper. Lamborghini factory driver, got his hat nailed on.
Christian Engelhardt looking to find a way also around the outside and has to pull back in line. So nothing that can be done in that 16th place against Jordan Pepper, but goes now again up alongside, coming up into Druids. Is he prepared to go the long way round? As Jordan Pepper carrying an issue, because you never expect Jordan Pepper to give up positions that comfortably or easily. Now down into Graham Hill Bend, and Christian Engelhardt is all over the Lamborghini. You can see that now Jordan Pepper having to go defensive one way, then the other way. And that is also going to open up the door to Simon Gachet following through behind the Porsche.
Absolutely right, as they come then over the brow down towards Hawthorns. We're on lap number 28, 17.5 minutes of the race still to go. And it is Matteo Drudi then leading by 3.2 seconds. He is getting away. Valentino Rossi in second spot ahead of Charles Weerts. Now, they're out of the same stable at WRT, but look at this great line of cars lower down. All of this now is for 15th, 16th, 17th places. Jordan Pepper having to really defend for all he is worth.
That's a very difficult situation now for so many cars all compacted. It takes away your opportunity to build momentum, to find a way around, and all you can do is hope to put pressure. I mean, just Jordan Pepper's having to drive the wheels off the Lamborghini. Again, it looks as if there's something with the car that maybe it's temperature, tire temperature related. Remember, we're in a much warmer part of the day than we've had throughout the 2 days of running at Brands.
Right, race leaders through. Lead gap is going up. But as far as the best battle on track is concerned, it is here. And it's for 15th place. Jordan Pepper still being able to keep Christian Engelhardt at bay as the cars make the climb up towards Druids. Behind Engelhardt's Porsche is Simon Gachet's Audi, then Jean-Baptiste Simonal, then Albert Costa, mired in 19th place. Pretty much everybody has got a playmate, apart from Drudi in the race lead.
And he doesn't want one.
No.
He's happy. 3.3 seconds. Well, it could be 3.3 minutes in reality because he's totally unchallenged. Rossi hasn't got the pace. He's going to be thinking about Weerts, my teammate, coming through 3/4 of a second behind me. And then Benjamin Goethe in the McLaren just a further second to the bit. So it's not going to be a comfortable ride for Rossi all the way to the end. 16 minutes to go.
The fastest driver in the top 6 is Marciello. He is lapping quicker than the 5 cars ahead of him. The gap first to 6th is 8 seconds. I'm not suggesting Marciello's got a chance of winning the race because it's tough so to do, but he is catching.
Yeah, and he's taken, I mean, when he got behind the wheel, this went back to Green Racing. He was over 3.5 seconds behind Legeray. He's now got that down to 1.5 seconds. So that's just been whoop the inside. Wow.
That was Lapalainen, again being very, very brave, and that was getting ahead of Christian Clean.
I'd say he's clocked Sterling is better than anybody all weekend. He's just thrown the car down the inside. Now the Ferrari's doing a good job giving him all the assistance. Nevertheless, you've got a confidence in yourself and your car to be able to pull that one off.
Inspired move, not for the first time, by Konsta-Lapalainen. He is looking great. He's up into 12th place. You also just saw briefly the fact that Charles Weerts is being given a hard time by Benjamin Goethe. That takes the pressure off Valentino Rossi. Jordan Pepper still defending for all he's worth. The same is true, actually, of number 26 Audi of Simon Gachet. Downhill, Jean-Baptiste Simonal is behind him. Now, this is Weerts, third. Look, he's fallen off the back of Rossi. He's being caught by Goethe. He's also being caught by Legeray. And let's see in the background, Marciello is there.
Marciello is marching towards the front.
That's easy for you to say.
I'm going to laugh at your own jokes.
There he is, Raffaele Marciello then, 6th place. And relentless is the progress. His last lap was a 24.3. Again, he's quicker than anybody ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the car really, really working well, and Marciello using every aspect the car gives him. But he will catch the back of the Audi. He needs to choose the bit of the racetrack where he thinks, I've got that little bit of extra pace, that extra momentum to put myself. Oh, he's off on the gravel. Is that up again?
That's a
Sheen curve.
And that's the other Boutsen VDS Audi. It is Adam Eteki, and he's dug himself all the way through. He's on the grass. He's going to be able to rejoin. So there's a local yellow flag, but the race will be able to continue. Now he's got to find a gap in the traffic. The car squirms its way back towards the racetrack, and he has rejoined.
Well, good marks for doing that. But look at the gravel coming out of the back of the Audi, so anybody following is going to be peppered with all that gravel. Let's look again and see. Well, that was, again, a move against the Ferrari, and never, ever going to work because he just got too much of the car on the grass. Wow, up in the air. Oh, that was like riding Bronco, wasn't it?
That was a big moment, and luckily it stayed the right way up. So that was Adam Eteki flying through the gravel, and he's pitted as a legacy of all of that, not surprisingly. Right, Valentino Rossi for second, his best ever in a GT car potentially here. Charles Weerts third, Benjamin Goethe fourth there, look in the Rofco Garage 59 McLaren. Lucas Leggeret fifth, Raffaele Marciello is closing as well. All of these cars are in pro. Seventh is the leading Gold Cup car, it's the BMW of Callan Williams, right out of the Sterling's left-hander go the BMWs. This is the race leader, lest we forget. Matthew Drudy just measuring his pace now, 3.5 seconds to the good. He is under no stress whatsoever.
No, and he's done an extremely good job because he's not tried to extend his lead. He's kept that gap between 3.5, 3.4 seconds to second place Rossi, and Rossi has also been fortunate. He's stretched the gap between himself and Charles Weerts. It's now up to 1.2 seconds, and now Weerts has got Benjamin Goethe breathing all over the back. As we see, look at this is 5th and 6th position, so Marciello ain't out of it, but it's going to be a much, much more difficult task to find a way around Leggeret. We've got just under 12.5 minutes of this race to go.
Well, the queue is there, isn't it? So in terms of pace, Marciello should be able to move through, but we know how hard it is to overtake. And of course, you're not going to easily trick a Weerts or a Leggeret into making a mistake and opening the door for you. So this is going to become a really tough 12 minutes for Raffaele Marciello as they pound down towards Hawthorns. But Valentino Rossi still second, Charles Weerts still third, Matthew Drudy still leads the way, and Albert Costa, still with the fastest lap of the race to his name, is down in 18th place.
So this is the legacy of having a poor grid position for the 88 Mercedes. Started all the way back on the 10th row of the grid, but a great pit stop by the team and a great drive by Marciello and some thought a bit of fortuitous. Other teams had poorer pit stops, so it's a combination of just the team doing a good job, Marciello doing a good job, and others maybe not quite so clever in the pits.
Well, Marciello, we know, never gives up, turning his way through Clark Curve. He's been the bravest man through Paddock at 155 kilometres an hour. That is Lucas Leggeret ahead of him. The Audi is quick coming on to the Brabham Straight, so he preserves that very modest margin, does Lucas Leggeret, of 0.3 of a second. Through Paddock they turn. Marciello skims the curve on the inside line. Now the climb to Druids, and he's a little bit nearer.
Yeah, Leggeret was a little bit wide, didn't really make his clipping point at Paddock Hill Bend. You can see how close the Mercedes can pull under brakes, but then the downhill acceleration in the gap seesaws back. Timo Boguslawski looking, if his eyes could make Marciello go quicker, they would be making him go quicker, but there's nothing Boguslawski can do. He did his bit in the car in his stint, and it's all down to them. Oh, and who's gone off? Was that? Oh, that's
de Moustier, isn't it?
De Moustier.
Yeah, Gregoire de Moustier, the car that led the first half of the race. He is having an absolute nightmare this weekend. So Gregoire de Moustier, I mean, the pace has not been good. And this is somebody that used to run at the front of GT1 World Championship races and GT3 races in Hex's McLaren days and other cars. He is an experienced driver. There, Christian Engelhardt tries to get at the inside of the McLaren of Christian Klein, but he couldn't quite do it. There's an awful lot going on in this battle pack. Not surprising, really, because the cars are in a long, long line, and anything is about to give at any moment. And you've just seen one of those dramas, which has been for Gregoire de Moustier. And this is also number 31, the Jean-Baptiste Simonal BMW. Albert Costa to the inside. Take that!
Yeah, well, will that be looked at? Because that was a definite tag by the Ferrari on the BMW. So back again to looking back from the Audi back to the Porsche. So Christian Engelhardt still driving the wheels of it, still, that was actually the back of the McLaren, I beg your pardon, Christian Klein. So what can the Porsche do? The McLaren, you say, doesn't spin up the turbos quite as quickly as other turbocharged cars, but got good speed at the end of the straight, so maybe that'll be the salvation for Christian Klein. 9.5 minutes to go.
Turns his way through Paddock then. Christian Klein currently in 12th place. That drama for Gregoire de Moustier has plunged the car to 18th now. Mathieu Drudy was caught on that last lap by Valentino Rossi. There is Albert Costa up into 16th, and he's not given up either. He's on the back of Gachet, and we saw on the last lap of race 1 that things could still change, so there's always potential.
So it's all really pace being dictated to by the car you're following, and the car that's following you is having his pace dictated by your pace, and on it goes, and on it goes. Now that's not bright going that wide out coming out of Surtees.
And I think
Here we
that
are, top 6, all covered by basically the metaphorical handkerchief.
I think that was a place change, wasn't it? The Audi going wide, as you said, and it was Albert Costa going through on the inside to 15th. This is Marcello then, still pounding on, closing on Lucas Leggeret into Clark Curve. The Audi drifts a little wide, but Marcello follows the line and moves it back to the apex. But he's closer now than he was when we were last on board.
So up the hill, off the throttle onto the brakes, get the nose in. And certainly Marcello appears to be able to do that more consistently than Leggeret can do in the Audi.
Through Druids they come. Raffaele Marcello trying to move that car around, trying to distract Leggeret. He just needs half a gap. He just needs a tiny mistake out of the Frenchman ahead of him, and then he'll be able to pounce. Onto Cooper Straight they come. Lap 35, 8 minutes to go.
So for Leggeret, he's that little bit too far behind Goethe in the McLaren to gain any advantages. You know, Goethe is pushing like mad to try and get Charles Vance in the 3rd place WRT BMW. So Leggeret's kind of in a no man's land, but he knows he's got within tenths of a second behind him, the Raffaele Marcello Mercedes, so he needs to focus just not maybe so much now on Goethe, he's gone, but keep your eye on what Raffaele Marcello might attempt with just 7.5 minutes now remaining.
And at the back of that queue, look, Raffaele Marcello. And credit to Akonis ASP, because it has won the pit stop challenge with the fastest pit stop time in this race. And I mention that because often that was where they were losing races to WRT because they weren't quite as quick in the pits. But today, the best pit stop in this race has been done by the Akonis ASP team, and that's helped to get the Mercedes AMG up into 6th, having started 19th. Drudy to Rossi, 4 seconds. Rossi to Weert, 1.2. Weert to Goethe, who you're looking at, is 4 tenths, and behind Goethe is Leggeret, and then Raffaele Marcello in 6th place as Goethe closes up under braking.
This is the area where the BMW isn't quite as effective as other brands around it, but Weert, of course, on the throttle a little bit earlier. The best part for the BMW is on the exit of Surtees onto the Grand Prix loop, and Benjamin Goethe needs, if he's going to make a move, he has to do it on the part of the racetrack where the BMW is less strong than the McLaren.
There's Valentino Rossi, who's just got to bring it home. Charles Weerts is not being able to stay with him. Down towards the Hawthorne's right-hander they come. Dries van Thor is watching on. Maxime Martin watching on as well. And Valentino Rossi, I think I'm right in saying, is on for his first podium. He didn't get a podium last year in his Audi exploits from memory. So it'll be a great result for his BMW association, but it will be his best result. His first podium, therefore, within GT World Challenge Europe, be it sprint or endurance.
And it'll prove something to Rossi himself that he's got the ability. We've known that the ability's been there. What he has needed to do is to get the circumstances where he can use that and build his own confidence and build the pace and then use it as an effective race tool, which he's been doing since he's taken over the wheel of the 46 BMW. Here's a chance for Marcello. Can he make it work there? He's going to hug the inside coming up the hill, and he's denied the opportunity, but the undercut coming off, Paddock Hill Bend, not really going to be worthwhile. Drops the wheel, the Audi drops that wheel, Leggeret, but, well, I wouldn't give up if I was Marcello. I think you can still harry Leggeret sufficiently to force him to do something that might just give you the opportunity to nick 5th place before this race finishes, just over 5 minutes.
It is Marcello who has done the overall top speed, and he's clocked 155 kilometres an hour through the VMAX point, sawing away at the wheel then as he comes onto the Grand Prix section of the circuit. He's lost a little bit of time to Leggeret, and that was towards the end of the first sector. So now the Grunt and Go Mercedes are going to try to catch back up onto the tail of the Audi. Marcello flings the car through Hawthorne's. He's up the curb, he's closing. Now he turns right into Westfield, hits the curb again. It doesn't unsettle the car too much. He's almost on the back of the Audi, but he can't quite get there. Marcello working harder than a fat lad's arteries at the moment, but it's not doing him any good because he still can't get into a challenging position. There's still a length between them.
Catching, and runs a bit wide coming out of Stirling, so that'll cause him to lose a tenth or so of a second. He lost a fraction of time going through Stirling's. The back end of the Mercedes did step out. He had to check that, and that gave a little bit of respite to Leggeret. But here we can see 2nd place, 3rd place, 4th place, 5th place, and still in 6th is Marcello.
And there is your Gold Cup leading BMW. So Callan Williams goes through in 7th place Finlay Hutchison has dropped to second, or that car has dropped to second, the number 21 Audi within gold, and it's quite a big gap, as you can see, between them. So it's looking good for BMW this. They're going to be second and third overall, and to win in gold as well. Mercedes AMG leading silver, Jordan Love and Frank Bird's car. Right, Marciello then on the back of Leggeret. We've got just under 4 minutes to go. Marciello has certainly not given up, but you can see how tough it is to get past the Audi that's at a comparable pace.
Much better for Marciello this time through Sterling, as he got the nose of the car in, the back was stable, so he's closer at this point on this lap than he was the lap earlier. Again, that will draw him further to the tail of Leggeret as they come through Hawthorns up into Westfield. Traffic still directly ahead of Leggeret, and that's Benjamin Goethe, but not been focused for Leggeret. He's going to be behind, not looking forward.
So down towards Sterling's come the BMWs, and it does look, although that gap is a second between Rossi and Wirtz, it's come down a little bit. It looks as though Valentino will survive for another couple of laps. Benjamin Goethe has dropped off the back of Charles Wirtz in 4th place, but it's game on for 5th, isn't it? Marciello has still not settled.
Well, I think the positional change, 5th is whether it's going to be an Audi or a Mercedes or the other way around as we go on board Valentino Rossi. They look at the intensity of the concentration. He comes up into Paddock Hill Bend and drop down through the compression and up the hill into Druids, and barely a blink in the eyes. There's one there. So had an opportunity, Maxime Martin and Vincent Voss, the boss and co-driver, all looking and thinking, wow, 2nd place. Maybe weren't seriously thinking about that as a possibility, but we're going to take it.
Well, it'll be a great reception, I'm sure, from the Valentino Rossi fans, both here and those watching. And of course, he has really turned the spotlight on GT racing since his involvement in the championship. And he's a much better driver than he was 12 months ago. Look at this, he's not put a wheel out of line, has he? He's consolidated a gap. He's maintained that over Charles Wirtz, a triple champion in this class of racing. So Valentino Rossi, thanks to a good effort by Maxime Martin.
Car 77, 10-second time penalty added to the final racing time for causing a collision.
Well, that is significant because 77 is leading in silver. So Jordan Love and Frank Bird are being given a 10-second penalty that should put them behind Baptiste Moulin. Now, I'm trying to remember what the collision was.
Oh my. We have so many of them.
Yeah.
Remember them all.
It was being investigated against number 32. Well, that's the Wirtz and Van Thor BMW, which is way up the road. So I'm not quite sure how that's ever occurred. But anyway, there is a 10-second penalty for car 77 for causing a collision, unless it was very early in the race and it's taken a long time to sort itself out.
So last knockings here. This lap, is this going to be the last lap, or will we get one more? I have a feeling we just about sneak one more lap, because the cars will come across the line with maybe about 10 seconds to go before the hour is up. Look at this, gets closer. Leggeret is going to have to defend up the inside. Goes to the outside now. Can he make the undercut, get the throttle open, get the power on? He's doing what he needs to do, but has he done it enough? Is there enough front, side by side? And yes, but will Leggeret concede? He's not going to concede. He's going to go side by side all the way up under Hawthorns. He has regained that 5th place back, but will the undercut again from the Mercedes see it storm through going up into Westfield? No.
So Marciello then, right on the back of Lucas Leggeret, and he's doing his best. He's going to have one more lap, one more shot. He can't do a lap of Linen and dive up the inside going into Sterling's, can he?
And I tell you what, Lucas Leggeret's done a really good job, because, oh, and who's gone off the 60, the Lamborghini? Oh dear me, that's Surtees on the entry to Surtees.
So that's number 60, which is the BSR Lamborghini. That was Jordan Pepper, wasn't it, at the wheel of the car? It's gone off the racetrack. Right, one more lap then for the race leader, Matthew Drudy. What a result this is going to be. 4 seconds clear, but I think the biggest cheer of all is going to go the way of Valentino Rossi, isn't it, for 2nd place? Can we get Marciello up 1 spot up into 5th?
Well, Leggeret has managed to fend him off at every occasion, even when the Mercedes technically was ahead, got into 5th place, but Leggeret stood his ground, stuck on the inside on the run up into Hawthorns, denied Marciello the chance to swoop around the front of the Audi, and here we are back where we've been for the last, 15 or so minutes.
So Leggeret then accelerates through. Confirmation from the steward's office that it's not 32 that Jordan Love got involved in, but 31, which is the Jean-Baptiste Simonal, Thomas Neubauer car. Right, Maxime Martin rubbing his hands with glee because he can see a 2nd place result coming here. There is Rossi second. Wirtz is closing again. He's taking Goethe with him. Leggeret has still got Marciello behind him. But up front, Mathieu Drudy, who's had a really easy stint. The hard yards were done in that crossover point when he was on fresher tyres and he was able to get in better lap times to jump ahead of the opposition. This is Valentino Rossi, who is set for his best ever finish in Fanatec GT. But let's get the leader across the line first of all, because it is going to be a race win for Riccardo Feller, who started, and for the Trezor Orange 1 team, the Attempto Run Audi, it is Mathieu Drudy who brings the car home to win at Brands Hatch in race 2 in Sprint Cup. Valentino Rossi, his best ever finish. He's second with Maxime Martin, and Valentino Rossi is a delighted man, understandably. So also is Maxime Martin.
Well, this is the race that Valentino Rossi has come of age. He's shown that he can sustain the pressure. He didn't make any mistakes. He gets a second place podium finish. He will be over the moon, as is the entire WRT BMW team.
Third has gone the way of Charles Wirtz and Dries Van Voor. Fourth, Benjamin Goethe and Nicolai Schiergaard. Fifth, Lucas Leggeret and Christopher Hauser. That could have been such a different story, but for that Pox pit stop. And sixth, Raffaele Marciello and Timur Bogoslawski, which is actually quite a result given where they were in the first stint. Seventh to win gold, Callan Williams and Nicholas Crutten. Eighth, Constant Lapalainen, one of the great overtakers of that race, along with co-driver Giacomo Altway. Ninth, Finlay Hutchison and Gilles Magnus, second in gold. 10th, Erwin Bastard and Patrick Niederhauser, and we await confirmation of silver when the penalty is applied to number 77. That has won on the road, Jordan Love and Frank Bird, but it's going to be a possibly amended result when you add the 10 seconds to that car, because I reckon that's going to drop it behind Baptiste Moulin in number 119, having taken over from Marcus Pavarud, but confirmation will come. Well, that's a great result for the Attempto team, which has been an occasional race winner, occasional front runner in the championship, but a great result for the Audi team.
Now, they've got two really great racers, drivers and racers, Riccardo Feller and Matteo Trudi, and of all the teams at the front of the field, ultimately, I think that was the best balanced of driver ability and speed of the front cars, and a truly deserved victory for Attempto. And a great day here for Valentino Rossi. Don't undo your seatbelts until you get yourself to a standstill in the pit lane. I know he's been told on the radio not to do it, but instinct is sometimes stronger than, common sense.
Confirmation as well that it was Marcus Pavarud who came home as the winner of the Silver Cup, the penalty putting him and Baptiste Moulin up into the lead, therefore to win the Silver Cup, and Jordan Love and Frank Bird with the penalty for turning around 31 BMW in second place then. And what a scene. Maxime Martin, Valentino Rossi and a delighted WRT stable. And Valentino Rossi clambers aboard the car. You'd have thought he won the race, wouldn't you?
Well, for him, it is a victory.
True.
And that's the most important thing. He has done what he's been trying to do for one full season and 2 races into this second season with WRT BMW. And you can see the pleasure and joy within the team and Maxime Martin. I don't think Maxime Martin thought that when Valentino took over there was any chance of maintaining our second place. And he's delighted to say I was completely wrong.
I think you're probably right.
Yvert's the co-owner of the team.
Just about everybody with a camera phone is down there. Just to the right, as you saw there, Emma Laderman, who is the team's PR representative. So this will be all over social media any moment. Well, while they're celebrating at WRT, Mathieu Drudy and Riccardo Feller are celebrating an outright win, almost unnoticed, you've got to say, in all of this. Let's hear from our winners with Gemma Scott.
Boys, once again, congratulations. This time, exactly where you wanted to be with the win. Matteo, we'll come to you first.
Yeah, finally. It's my first win in GT World Challenge since 2019, when I started here. I'm really happy. I mean, I have to thank Riccardo, the guys that did an amazing pit stop. I was able to go out on a clean track and push with fresh tires. Found out I was first, so then I was trying to manage and it worked out, so I'm really happy.
Congratulations, it's brilliant to have your first win. And Riccardo, for you, you weren't that happy when I spoke to you this morning. You said, no, things could be better, Now they are.
Yeah, the sun came out and then everything got better. No, really happy, nothing to add to what Matthias said, super thankful. Very happy for the team, it's well deserved, and let's continue like this.
Congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
I suppose one of the other talking points of the weekend has got to be the fact that Audi, which maybe was a brand people were starting to write off, has really bounced back in very impressive fashion. WRT, for so long, John, the trailblazing team for Audi, has moved to a different brand, but yet they've easily been replaced.
I think it's horses for courses, basically. There'll be other circuits where Audi will not be as competitive as we've seen them here this weekend, and we'll see other brands coming to the fore. So we go to Paul Ricard in about a month's time, and that's going to be an entirely different set of circumstances. Who will win there? Well, goodness knows.
So if you had happy race winners, you're going to have a happy second place crew. Maxime Martin and Valentino Rossi.
Vale, congratulations. Your first podium now within the championship. How does that feel?
I'm so happy, so happy. Yes, first podium. The podium is always special, but the first one also more. And yeah, you know, we had the chance also in Monza, but we were unlucky. But you know, Max make the job yesterday in the quali and give me the car in a great position. And after I had a good pace. So thanks to everybody, to all the team, to Max. I'm very happy.
Absolutely, a great result for the team, but also to see the BMW there on the podium. I don't think anybody thought that would happen at the start of the weekend.
No, definitely not. And yeah, after a good qualifying, for sure, we were hoping for a good result. And yeah, to be able to offer Valentino's first podium, it's amazing.
Congratulations to both of you. Well done.
Grazie, thank you, thank you.
So a very happy Valentino Rossi, and yes, as John was suggesting, now that he's had that podium, he knows he can do it. Is that going to unlock something within his confidence?
And I think doing it also, he always had the pressure of Charles Weerts. I mean, Charles Weerts and Dries van Thor have been the class of the WRT field for so many seasons. And there, Rossi denied that by doing the job he was there to do. And, well, you can see the delight and in his voice, not just in his face, in his voice.
Let's look at the results of race 2 then. 1 or 2 penalties perhaps lurking in the system, but provisionally, Mattia Drudi and Riccardo Feller win at Brands Hatch, nearly 4 seconds clear of Valentino Rossi, his best ever finish, Maxime Martin, his co-driver. Charles Weerts and Dries van Thor take 3rd ahead of Benjamin Goethe and Nicolai Kiergaard. Lucas Legeret 5th with Christopher Hauser, and 6th Raffaele Marciello and Timur Boguslavski. The winning gold team, Callan Williams and Nicholas Cruton, they came home in 7th place. Go to 16th and you'll find the winning silvers, Baptiste Moulin and Marcus Pavarud in the VSR Lamborghini coming home as category victors. But it has been certainly a race with plenty of drama, but a great drive by Mattia Drudi for his first win in the championship. And they're just confirmation of the second half of the result. Jordan Love and Frank Bird losing their class win with that 10-second penalty. And the early race leader, Christopher Mies, ending up in 18th place after Gregoire de Moustier had his moment in the gravel, and they lost out on that pit stop as well, with the car being kept out on old rubber. Right, let's hear from our class winners. Gemma is on her toes in the pit lane.
More winners down here in the pit lane now for our Gold Cup. Of course, fantastic drive. Nicholas, you set that one up from the beginning.
Yeah, I think we had a good quali yesterday to keep us in that place. And yeah, start was a bit difficult starting from the outside. But yeah, I managed to keep it clean and then follow the pro cars. I think we were 2nd for the pit stops, but the team did a good strategy call to call us in. And then, yeah, Callan took over, we were able to undercut the leader. And then, yeah, we just kept it clean from there. And yeah, first win in Gold Cup, which I think we're really happy about, and yeah, I think that maybe the next one can be even better, maybe with 2 class wins.
Well, of course, you had a podium in Monza and now a podium in here. It's looking like a strong season ahead.
Yeah, so far it's going well. First race this morning was a bit tricky because the first qualifying yesterday was tough. But yeah, this race was great. Nicholas started really well. Managed to overtake the Audi as he was coming out the pits and build a gap and took it from there. So yeah, really great race, really happy for the team, and yeah, great way to start the Sprint Cup season.
It certainly is. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good job, and it's another BMW displaying pace as well.
So. Just interesting listening to Nicholas talk in particular. Such a level of confidence. Yeah, but you know, it was no problem. We had it under control all the time.
Race 2 of Sprint Cup here at Brands Hatch began with Christopher Mies converting pole position into the race lead. Maxime Martin getting the BMW up the inside of Christopher Hauser's Audi, but he couldn't find a way through, and he had to settle for 3rd in the opening stint. Life was busy for those in the pack, such as Dries van Thor, who had quite a bit of work to do from starting on that 7th row of the grid. But he hustled his way to the outside line as he tried to make up ground. 1 or 2 ran out wide, including Nicola Maranangeli's Ferrari, which had been on pole in silver coming out of Druids. That was a car that ultimately would retire with damage. Up front, Christopher Mies built the gap over Christopher Hauser. The 2 Audis building the gap over the BMW of Maxime Martin. Timur Boguslavski was amongst the drivers, desperately trying to make progress. And then we had an interruption. When off the road fell Alberto Di Folco up at Sheen Curve, and with the Audi beached in the gravel, a full course yellow was converted to a safety car. Then the pit window opened, and although Christopher Mies stayed out as long as he could in order to try and build the gap for Gregoire de Bustier, he'd been out for too long on old tyres, and that meant that he dropped back in the pack. There was then this little bit of contact between the number 14 Ferrari and, 69 Ferrari of Albert Costa against the Jean-Baptiste Simonard BMW. As the race settled down, however, up front, it was looking pretty good as far as Mathieu Drudi was concerned. But charging along behind was Valentino Rossi, good for his best ever finish in a GT car. A maiden win in Fanatec GT for Mathieu Drudi with Riccardo Fella, Valentino Rossi and Maxime Martin second. And there's delight all round at that result. So the podium awaits, and no doubt there is going to be a great reception for Valentino Rossi when he makes his way onto that podium. 3 podiums, of course, overall, as well as gold and silver. And the backdrop to all of this, or the soundtrack, is a Caterham race, as we had before, because swarms of Caterhams have been released onto the circuit once more. But the drivers are being made ready behind the podium, so we need the 9 different crews and the 2 drivers for each, and a representative of the winning team, and then they'll be brought forward. So the cameras are there, the teams are there ready to do the cheering from down below. The dignitaries will be readied as well. And so it is going to be Charles Witt and Dries van Thor for 3rd place in Pro and 3rd overall, who step to the podium first. And then, wait for it, for 2nd place, out will come Maxime Martin and Valentino Rossi.
Well, that's a popular result if ever we've won.
Is it ever? Is it ever? And then, don't forget the winners, everybody, because Riccardo Fella and Mathieu Drudi will make their way to the top step of the podium for Trésor Orange 1 from Trésor Attempto Racing. There's Riccardo Fella and Mathieu Drudi taking his first win in Fanatec GT. Handshakes all round, and 2 very happy drivers are on the top step of the Brands Hatch podium. Mathieu Drudi, Riccardo Fella, the winners at Brands Hatch in race 2 of the weekend in Fanatec GT. The Sprint Cup has got off to a dramatic start. Selfies taken by an all-smiling Riccardo Fella. The trophies are brought forward, and Angelo Comazzetto, the representative from AWS, to make the presentations to the 3rd place drivers in the red overalls, Dries van Thor and Charles Witt. Then to Valentino Rossi and to Maxime Martin, who kisses the trophy, does Valet. You can see the smile as a proper delighted driver. The winning team get a trophy, and then the race-winning drivers' trophies to Mathieu Drudi and Riccardo Fella. So very happy 2 drivers then receiving race winners' trophies with the Brands Hatch map engraved as well there. And Valentino Rossi's army of fans delighted that they have stayed to watch the 2nd race and to see him on the podium for the first time in Fanatec GT. Race winners, Mathieu Drudi and Riccardo Fella. Valentino Rossi and Maxime Martin take 2nd and 3rd to Charles Witt and Dries van Thor. The champagne awaits. Mathieu Drudi, Riccardo Fella celebrate their win in time-honoured fashion, and Valentino Rossi on a car racing podium in Fanatec GT for the first time. Make sure that everybody knows that he's a happy man.
Yeah, he's got that smile we've seen so frequently when he was a MotoGP star, and that's come back on the podium. And thankfully, some of the drivers are actually enjoying some of the champagne, sparkling wine, whichever it might be. And Charles Witt's giving, well, he's been a bit... Maxime Martin getting a right eyeful of champagne.
The bottles drop to the teams. There's always a tense moment. We don't want glass shattering on the pit lane.
Albi.
So Maxime Martin ready to drop the bottle. Success! Well caught, that man.
Indeed.
Well, Mathieu Drudi's keeping hold of his bottle, but Valentino Rossi, great result, and that's going to go down a storm with BMW's marketing department, isn't it?
That's been a great success because they've had 2 cars in the podium and they've also won other categories. So, right. I mean, I have to say that in part the reason why we've seen BMW come to the fore in the second race has been the ambient and track temperatures have come up, and I think that helped BMW much more than it did this morning when the temperatures are much cooler.
So Mercedes AMG continues to lead the global contest in Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS from Audi Sport, and Porsche in third. So points on the board for BMW, but Mercedes AMG Motorsport is still clear. And of course this takes points from not just Europe, but Australia, Asia, which has been racing this weekend, and America as well. So as the swarm of Caterhams does battle on track, there's another battle going on, which is to get the next set of drivers ready for the next podium, which will be getting underway very, very shortly here. As far as the championship is concerned, 2 races in. Mattia Drudi and Riccardo Fella then now have the championship lead from Raffaele Marcello and Timo Bogoslawski, Dries Van Thor and Charles Weerts third, with the next sprint round being at Massano in July. Our next races within Fanatec GT, the endurance rounds at Paul Ricard, and then of course the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa at the first weekend of July. Great action we've enjoyed here at Brands Hatch. Thanks for your company. From Gemma Scott in the pit lane, from John Watson and David Addison, we will see you next time as Fanatec GT moves on away from Brands Hatch. Bye for now.